website gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
It's a very difficult issue, this, right? As far as we know, the boxer with male chromosomes was born with female genitalia.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite simple. Sex in humans is binary and immutable because we are mammals. And there is a minority of people who have disorders of sexual development, and that can affect a person's reproductive organs. But these people are male or female. And yesterday, what we witnessed was basically just glorified male violence against women and girls. The difference is, that happens every day all over the world. And the difference is that in every other circumstance, we consider beating up women to be wrong, but it was deemed acceptable by those at the IOC because they're claiming that it's sport. It's not. It's violence and it's wrong.
Peter, Lottie's right, isn't she, that we've been talking a lot recently about violence against women and girls, and regardless of whether this person is intersex or transgender, they have male chromosomes. That means they have a very, very distinct biological advantage that could actually be fatal to a female athlete competing against them.
Well, of course, sport does need to be fair, and we do need to examine this case very thoroughly. There are reports that the boxer, Iman Khalif, was born a biological woman. She is not transgender. She is not non-binary. She is not intersex. She may have elevated levels of testosterone, but that's entirely natural. It's beyond her control. It's the way she was born. And that is why the International Olympic Committee has said that she falls within the rules.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Morning, 9:30 on Thursday, the 29th of August, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Good morning. So, should smoking be banned, even outside? Ministers are considering stopping smokers lighting up outside of pubs, sports stadiums and play areas.
Outrageous. Repairing relationships, the Prime Minister's European tour takes him to France, where he pledges to inject some hope into Britain.
And we're going to be joined by a political biographer, Sir Anthony Selden, whose new book, Truss at 10, has a few shocking accusations about the former Prime Minister. Liz Truss, don't miss that.
And Thames Water woes. The struggling water company says bills will have to rise by more than £260 a year. That's 59% higher than they are at the moment.
And it's 1 year on from ULEZ's expansion throughout London. Small businesses want more support. More than 70% of fines haven't been paid. But has it made any difference to the air quality? We'll let you know. Let us know your thoughts. Oh, nearly fell over there. That would have been a good start to the day, wouldn't it? gbnews.com/your say. First for the very latest news with Sam Francis.
Bev, Andrew, thank you very much and good morning to you. Just after 9:30, the top story this morning, it's being reported that smoking could soon be banned in many outside spaces, including in pub gardens and in some parks. According to what the Sun newspaper says are secret Whitehall papers, ministers are reportedly considering making it illegal to light up in outdoor restaurants, playgrounds and outside nightclubs and stadiums. The government, though, says it won't comment on those leaks, but has confirmed it is considering a range of measures to make Britain smoke-free. Last month's King's speech included a promise to revive Rishi Sunak's plan to continually raise the smoking age, meaning that today's young people won't ever be able to buy cigarettes. 2 men have been arrested on suspicion of murder after a wheelchair user was stabbed in East London. Police found Jade Anthony Barnett injured after being called to a fight. The 38-year-old, who lost his leg in a motorbike accident, according to his friends, in 2007, died at the scene in Clapton. His family have this morning described him as joyful, cheerful and caring. Troubled Thames Water says it needs to hike customer bills by nearly 60% by 2030 or warns it will become uninvestable. Britain's biggest water supplier made those demands in its response to regulator Ofwat's proposals to cap household water charges. The firm says the restrictions aren't tenable and it could prevent the recovery of the company. Conservative leadership hopeful Tom Tugendhat is expected to accuse Labour of having no plans and no vision to improve the country in a speech he's due to make later today. It's suggested the Shadow Security Minister will also allege the government is being dishonest about its tax choices. He wants to make it clear that Labour are, he says, pretending they have no option because of a so-called financial black hole. Experts are warning we could face a surge in measles cases as children return to school in the coming days. The UK Health Security Agency is urgently asking parents to make sure their children are protected against the illness. Figures show outbreaks since the autumn of 2023 have resulted in the highest number of cases in the country since 2012. The World Food Programme says it's pausing the movement of workers in Gaza until further notice. That's after some of its staff came under fire there. It happened close to an IDF checkpoint just after the team had delivered humanitarian aid into the central area of the Strip. That comes as Israel claims a full-fledged war is now underway in the West Bank as it targets so-called Islamic Iranian terrorists. Palestinian authorities have said hospitals are under siege there. And finally, not a single ticket has been sold, but Oasis are expecting a sold-out tour. They've now added this morning 3 extra dates to their UK tour next year. Noel Gallagher says unprecedented demand has prompted the decision to put on those more shows. One in Manchester, in London and in Edinburgh. Tickets finally go on sale on Saturday. Those are the latest headlines. For now, I'll be back with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good morning. It is 9:35. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. And we are rather incensed this morning. All credit to the Sun newspaper for having this exclusive about the fact that it looks like Keir Starmer's government are going to beef up the incoming restrictions on vaping and smoking to include, Andrew, no smoking outside of restaurants, stadiums...
Pub gardens.
Pub gardens. Pub gardens.
Yeah. The next thing, it will be in the street.
Yeah.
Because once you start, it doesn't stop. And there's even talk amongst the more extremists on this policy, of which one of the biggest extremists is Sadiq Khan, the London mayor. He actually wants smoking banned from council houses. I was brought up in a council house. My dad puffed away on his roll-ups, his old Holborn. Outrageous. He couldn't have had his fag when he got in from the factory.
It is outrageous because what
or
individual...
have a puff in a pub garden.
You see, we all do things which are bad for us. The most dangerous thing that we probably do every morning is get in a car. That's the most dangerous thing. You get on the back of a motorbike. That is because he has to get it quite quickly. That's not just for fun. But, you know, we all do dangerous things, don't we?
We do.
And to what extent are you, happy with the government telling you you can or you can't do this because it might potentially harm you as an individual, and we know what's best for you? That is what we're hearing from this government.
Yeah, it is this idea they know best. And the other thing is, how is it going to be enforced? Who's going to enforce it? The publican won't want to enforce it because it's going to cost him business. The pubs are really up against it already. I mean, the pandemic nearly killed the industry.
A third of pubs closed after the pandemic.
And they're still closing every week. And pubs, I would argue, are an important part of British culture.
It's jobs, it's generation, it's growth, it's money in the economy. It's also about relationships.
It's also none of my business, actually, if somebody wants to smoke outside. But so the other night, I was my partner, we had dinner outside in a terrace of a restaurant, and over there, some people were smoking. Fine, good, let them.
Yeah.
I
completely
because
agree.
What was worse for my lungs would be, presumably, the cars that are driving past.
So
we're going to ban the cars now?
It's exactly...
Because they don't like cars either, this government.
The risk-benefit of all of life, that is what we all have to do every day. We decide our parameters of risk. And this government are deciding your parameters of risk in the minutiae of your life. I don't smoke. I've never smoked.
Well, I did. I stopped when I was 40. I wasn't a big smoker in the sense that I used to smoke if I went to the pub.
Yeah.
And I used to like to have a fag after dinner.
Yeah.
If I had a glass of wine, I'd have a cigarette, but I could go 2 days without smoking. But I stopped because I thought it's silly. But people come to my house, they can smoke in the garden.
Absolutely.
Are they going to ban it from my garden next?
You know, one of the areas they're talking about, possibly. One of the areas they're talking about banning it is outside of hospitals. Now, we've all been there, outside a hospital. Someone that's hooked up to a drip smoking a fag, right? And I always look at them and I think, oh, crikey, that's quite a choice. However, if you have a terminal illness and you are spending your last few weeks or months of your life in hospital, knock yourself out, smoke yourself into the grave, as far as I'm concerned, have whatever makes you happy.
And have a large gin and tonic while you're at it.
Quite. So I'm just appalled by the suggestion that this would happen, but I'm not remotely surprised, because all we're hearing from Sir Keir Starmer
We'd like to know what you think.
Is making choices for you.
Do you agree? Perhaps you think it's the right thing for government to do, because smoking is not good for anybody.
That's right.
And smoking is a huge pressure on the NHS, so that is the counter-argument. But
not as much as obesity.
Quite.
This is the thing. Obesity has overtaken smoking now in terms of the things that are going to kill us. So just wait, it'll come for your chips next.
Yeah, won't be chips in the street.
No, it's really serious. And people say, well, it's just a trivial thing. You don't have to. It's really serious because thematically it underpins the kind of march towards a totalitarian government. That sounds exaggerated, but I don't think it is.
Let's talk to somebody who will be directly affected by this. Steve Latto is owner of the Criterion Public House in St Andrews in Scotland, a fabulous part of the world. Morning to you, Steve.
Good morning.
What's your view of this? Now, I don't know whether this will apply in Scotland, because whether they're going to make it a United Kingdom. But you know, if it starts in England and Wales, it'll be coming your way soon. How bad will this be for your business?
I think we're in a bizarre situation where we're in both camps here. We've got a small outdoor area where we've got 8 tables. In Scotland, we don't have the outside land outside the front of the pubs that a lot of the English and Welsh pubs do. So our outside area is quite tight, and we've got some screens around it as well, just to protect us from the ever-present wind that is in Scotland. So we actually don't allow smoking at the moment in our outdoor area, or vaping, because of the proximity of the tables together. And because we do a lot of food, we find that it is more palatable for the majority of people that we don't allow smoking. However, it should be up to the publicans' decision to be able to do that. They know their customers best. They know their business best. And again, it's just another legislation that's getting brought in that seems to be needless and pointless at the moment, certainly from our industry, because we're managing it as best we can, and there is the wet lead outlets that don't have food will probably be absolutely completely against this, and the food led outlets will have a 50-50 view on the situation. So it should just be left alone as far as I'm concerned. I think people are managing it well at the moment.
The irony, of course, Steve, is that loads of pubs and restaurants made really great provision for outside seating space because of the pandemic, which will attract people, especially on the warm weather, will attract people to go, and it definitely will attract people who like to have a cigarette occasionally with a drink. You know, so in a way, it feels like 2 steps forward for the hospitality industry and then 3 steps back. How hard is it at the moment?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, we're 4 years down the line now from COVID, and I think a lot of places are just finding their feet now with regards to it. And another point of legislation and another point of not visiting the pub, or a reason not to visit the pub or restaurant, is, it'll be a nail in a lot of coffins, on top of the cost of living at the moment, the inflation costs that both consumers and businesses are facing at the moment as well.
I've got friends, Steve, who, if I go to dinner with them, they regularly pop out of the restaurant for a fag. Now, this legislation will catch them. They'll stop, and I know what will happen. They won't go out to the restaurant because they won't be able to enjoy it if they can't have their fag. This is going to happen to pubs. If people can't nip out from the pub for a fag, they're not going to go to the pub. They're going to stay at home and buy a few cans from the supermarket, another nail in the pub coffin.
Absolutely, and I think there's bigger issues at the moment as well when you look at the flavoured vapes side of things as well that has dominated it. We've got less and less people smoking and more people vaping. So they seem to be targeting the wrong side of it. And like I say, I think certainly in the licensed premises since the smoking ban came in and businesses have had to adapt to how that happens. And like you rightly say, COVID has brought in a lot of outside areas, which has been fantastic. This legislation just seems that step too far, and they should be concentrating on other things that are more damaging to health at the moment. And there's a lot bigger issues out there than smoking outside.
Keir Starmer was very clear at the beginning of this week about the fact that this budget in October is going to be grim for everybody. What do you need as a pub landlord, Steve, to help you? VAT reduction presumably would be a good one?
Yeah, I mean, the VAT reduction is huge for the hospitality industry across the board, whether it's the accommodation side of it. I think what a lot of people don't realise is that when we purchase food from a wholesaler, from a butcher, from our baker, we don't pay VAT on that amount, but we pay full VAT on the selling price of it. So what normally happens when we buy a keg of beer, we'll reclaim the VAT on the keg of beer, and then it works out to be about 11-12%, I think, in total that we pay. But on all food side of it and all accommodation side of it, we actually have to pay back that full 20% back to the government every time. So that VAT reduction that we received during COVID was a huge lifeline. In Scotland as well, we didn't, and we've not received the rates benefit that's happened in England as well. So I believe in England it's 50% or 75% rates reduction for hospitality industry, whereas the Scottish Government got that money to do it, they didn't pass that on to the hospitality industry as well. So we've actually had a rates increase in the last 2 years as well.
OK. All right. Thanks for joining us this morning. That was Steve Latter, owner of the Criterion in St Andrews in Scotland. Let us know your thoughts on this morning.
Up next, we're going to be talking to the author who's turned Liz Truss's 49 days Prime Minister into a textbook on how not to govern. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
You'll relate to this one. We've all been there, haven't we? Tensions high in the car as you head off on the latest adventure or holiday during the summer break.
Now, with the average family set to spend about 3.5 hours a week together in the car driving on the roads during the holidays, new research has shown that our relationships could be tested to the limit.
Yes, figures show that 21% are having arguments for simple things like the driver going the wrong way, which we were saying is not actually very simple. That's very simple.
I was going to say that. I'm surprised it's just 21%. Yeah. If I was going the wrong way down the road,
you'd know about it.
You'd hear from me.
A further 20% squabbling over how their partner drives, yes, and 25% admitting to being more prone to rowing when their kids are misbehaving. It's a lot to deal with, isn't it?
Fair enough.
Well, we're joined now by dating and relationship coach and author Persia Lawson. Good to see you this morning, Persia. What is it about being in a car that just makes things so tense?
Well, I think it's probably quite obvious, isn't it? It's the fact that we are in a confined space, we can't go anywhere, and it can just really create so much tension and stress, especially if you and your other half or a family member, whoever you're in the car with, are going through a little bit of a tricky time. And if it's really hot outside, that doesn't help either. So inevitably, it creates a lot of irritation and bickering, I would say, from my experience.
And what is it about children? If you add children into the mix, it just makes things very, very difficult, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of, are we there yet?
Yeah.
Kicking the back seat and just squabbles, kicking the siblings. So adding children into the mix is just going to turn the heat up on that tension.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, we're a little bit incensed this morning about the fact that Sir Keir Starmer's government are considering banning smoking in all sorts of public spaces
and it's
outdoors.
It's a classic bit of kite flying. It's the Sun have got the story, they've got the documents, and I think they'll do it. I remember Rishi Sunak had that bizarre policy of stopping children from a certain age buying smoking.
Well, that's still in there.
And that's so this is an extension of it. But that is a policy, by the way, which was also unenforceable.
Yeah.
Because, so if you were born in a certain year, you're never able to buy smoking. So when you get to 27, what year were you born? Oh, no, you can't have a cigarette. I mean, unenforceable.
Yeah, but at that point, you've got your digital ID and you're going to have to show it to buy anything.
Yeah.
Welcome to your digital prison. Honestly, I hate being psychic, but it's true. Right, Truss at 10.
Sure. This is the latest book from the esteemed political biographer Anthony Seldon. It's out today. It looks in depth at Liz Truss's 49 days as Prime Minister.
One of the shocking claims in the book is that she considered cutting cancer treatments to fund tax cuts. Her Chancellor at the time was, of course, Kwasi Kwarteng, and he spoke to Nigel Farage on GB News last night.
I can categorically state we never talked about reducing cancer treatment. Why would, I mean, it would have been absurd politically to have done that anyway.
Earlier on today, you said, I wasn't involved in any conversations about restricting healthcare.
That's true.
But that doesn't mean the Prime Minister and her team didn't discuss this. You're chucking her under the bus.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
I'm not doing that. I'm saying,
I'm sorry,
very careful.
I think so.
I was very careful in my wording.
It didn't look very careful to me.
It was. I said I didn't have any of those conversations, but if those conversations took place in other bits of the government, I wasn't privy to them. I didn't know about that. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, Seldon is a renowned biographer. This is quite a claim, isn't it?
Yes, I'm surprised that he made that claim, and also it wasn't sourced. I mean, I think the official that they, or the special advisor they quoted, said we were looking at expenditure cuts. I don't think he said that we were specifically looking at reducing cancer treatment, which would have been an outrage. I mean, it would have been morally wrong.
Well, the esteemed biographer, it really is political biographer, Sir Anthony Seldon joins us now. Sir Anthony, morning to you. That is a pretty explosive allegation to make against the former Prime Minister. You obviously can't tell us who you spoke to, but you're certain it's true. She actually contemplated banning or restricting cancer treatments on the NHS to save cash. That would have been politically catastrophic.
Yeah, so what happened was that following the absolute catastrophe of the mini-budget and the reaction against it, suddenly there had to be a £72 billion of cuts that had to be made, and officials came up with a list of cuts that had to be made and could be made, a shopping list, and cuts to cancer treatment on the NHS was on that list. Now, that was obviously a drastic scenario. How seriously did Liz Truss see that list? I would assume that she would have done. She was certainly saying, I don't believe that cuts can't be made. That was one of the things that she was saying. But she was not herself advocating it. It was just one of the things that her disastrous, and Kwarteng's disastrous budget had put this country in. I mean, to put a perspective on that, George Osborne's austerity involved about £30 billion of cuts. This was 73 billion, so over double the incredible austerity post 2010. So it was drastic, and it called for some really drastic possible measures. So they saw that list. We can only assume that they would have read the information that they were given.
Sure.
The book doesn't suggest that she was herself advocating that. It's just that she was advocating severe cuts. And as we then know, other things happened, and she decided to cut Kwasi Kwarteng, her own chancellor.
Sir Anthony, your book is also, it's devastating about her 49 days in office. She effectively failed every single test you set. Sum up why she was such a bad Prime Minister.
Because she didn't have the right character. She modelled herself on Ronald Reagan and on Margaret Thatcher, but she didn't appear to have learned that Margaret Thatcher took up to 2 years preparing the ground for the radical policies like the 1981 budget and the subsequent policies that came. You can't just come in, any leader can't come in and try and make terrible, massively significant changes without preparing people. You can blame the system and say that they're all against you, but that's not what leaders do. It's not what Margaret Thatcher did, the successful leaders in British history.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry we have to interrupt you. Her tenure was short. That interview was also too short. But we have got to say goodbye, Anthony Selden, for now. Alex with the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hey, good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Plenty of sunny spells around as we go through today, but also quite a few showers for some of us as well. We've already seen some of those showers developing across far northwestern parts, but they are going to become more widespread as we go through today, especially across Scotland, but some showers for Northern Ireland and northern western parts of England and Wales as well. Further south and east, a greater chance of staying dry, and here there will be a decent amount of sunshine on offer too, and in the sunshine it will feel pleasantly warm, although temperatures not quite as high as they were yesterday. More showers to come as we go through the end of the day across parts of Scotland. There will be some sunny spells in between those showers, but worth bearing in mind as some of the showers could be a little bit on the heavy side, and there could be some brisk winds at times towards the Northern Isles too. Also some showers as we go through the end of the afternoon into the evening for Northern Ireland and some parts of England and Wales, but here the showers really are going to be pretty isolated. Most of us will avoid them, and it is going to therefore be a pretty dry end to the day with some late sunshine around as well. Many of the showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland will actually clear away as we go overnight, so for many it is going to be a dry night with some clear skies, and with that we are going to see temperatures dipping a little bit lower than you might expect for the time of year. It is still just about summer for the time being, and we could see some fog patches across parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and southwest England first thing on Friday morning. Through Friday itself there could be some further blustery showers affecting the far north-northeast of Scotland, and perhaps some brisk winds towards the southeast at times and 1 or 2 showers elsewhere, but on the whole it's looking like a dry and often sunny day, and with that again feeling pleasantly warm in the sunshine. Temperatures ranging from mid to high teens in the north to low possibly mid-20s further south. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Thursday morning. In Northamptonshire, the southbound M1, the earlier broken down vehicle has gone at junction 18 for the A5 at Rugby. It was causing queues to junction 19 for the Catthorpe interchange. In Bedfordshire, the northbound M1 very slow with the lane closed due to an accident. That's going to affect you just after junction 10 for the Luton Airport Spur Road. Queues back to junction 9 at Redbourne in the roadworks. And in Essex, the southbound M11 We've got a lane closure there on the exit slip road due to a broken down vehicle at junction 6 for the M25. Queues are back to junction 7 at Harlow at the moment. And also in Kent on the coastline M20, we've got that speed restriction due to Operation Brock in place. That's going to affect you junction 8 for Leeds Castle and the Maidstone services to junction 9 at Ashford at the moment. And Rainham Marshes in London, the A13 closed due to that serious accident near to the Wellington interchange and the Ferry Lane interchange at the moment this Thursday morning. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could win an incredible £30,000 in cash. And you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'll buy you a drink.
Get your entry in now for another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash. Text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Very good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Thursday, the 29th of August, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Bev Turner, and Andrew Pearce.
So, should smoking be banned outside? Believe it or not, that's what Minister's considering doing, stopping smokers lighting up in pub gardens, sports stadiums, children's play areas and small parks.
And repairing relationships, the Prime Minister's European tour takes him to France today as he pledges to inject some much-needed hope into Britain. Good luck.
Thames Water woes. The water company says bills are going to have to rise by more than £260 a year. That's a staggering 59% higher than they are at the moment.
And that could mean that Thames Water customers are paying an average of nearly £700 by 2030. That comes as Britain's largest water utilities company battles with Ofwat to raise its bills.
And they've let down the BBC. BBC boss Tim Davie has slammed presenters Hugh Edwards and Jermaine Jenis after their recent scandals, and he told his staff they must build trust with viewers again.
Well, is Tim Davie going to get the £200,000 back then from Hugh Edwards?
Well,
the money that he was paid after he was arrested on allegations he knew he was going to have to admit to in court.
Also, I mean, I'd feel a bit hard done by if I was Jermaine Jenis being put in the same conversation as Hugh Edwards.
Who's a criminal.
Who is a criminal, by Tim Davie. That's not OK. I've got a bit of a problem with that. If I was Jermaine Jenis, I'd be talking to a lawyer right now, I think.
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. First with the very latest news headlines with Sam.
Very good morning to you from the GB Newsroom just after 10 o'clock. And the top story this morning, ministers are believed to be looking at a potential smoking ban for outside spaces, including pub gardens and parks. The government says it won't comment on what the Sun newspaper has called secret Whitehall papers. but it has confirmed it's considering a range of measures to make Britain smoke-free. It comes after Labour said it would resurrect Rishi Sunak, the former Prime Minister's flagship smoking ban, which was shelved before the general election in July. 2 men have been arrested on suspicion of murder after a wheelchair user was stabbed in East London. Police found Jade Anthony Barnett injured after being called to a fight in Clapton. The 38-year-old, who lost his leg in a motorbike accident in 2007, died at the scene. He's been described by friends and family today as cheerful and caring. Troubled Thames Water says it needs to hike customer bills by nearly 60% by 2030 or warns it will become uninvestable. Britain's biggest water supplier made the demand in its response to regulator Ofwat's proposal to cap household water charges. Well, our reporter Charlie Peters is at Thames Water's headquarters in Reading with more for us this morning.
Thames Water said that Ofwat's proposed cap is not tenable and renders our plan uninvestable and could prevent the turnaround and recovery of the company. Well, as this row continues between the largest water utilities company and the regulator, some concerns have been raised about the bonuses for the Chief Financial Officer and the CEO of Thames Water, stretching over into the millions.
And more from Charlie Peters throughout the rest of this morning. Well, in other news, Conservative leadership hopeful Tom Tugendhat is expected to accuse Labour today of having no plans and no vision to improve the country in a speech. It's suggested that the Shadow Security Minister will also allege the government is being dishonest about its tax choices. He wants to make it clear that Labour are, he says, pretending they have no option because of a so-called financial black hole. A financial watchdog says woeful budgeting at the Home Office is causing repeated overspends on the asylum system. For the past 3 years, the department set aside £110 million for asylum operations. However, data out today from the Institute for Fiscal Studies suggests the actual spend averaged £2.6 billion a year during that time. Labour, though, insists it is cleaning up what it calls the mess to deliver controlled and managed borders. Experts are warning we could face a surge in measles cases as children return to school in the coming days. The UK Health Security Agency is urgently asking parents to make sure their children are protected against the illness. Figures show outbreaks since the autumn of 2023 have resulted in the highest number of cases of measles in the country since 2012. In the Middle East, the World Food Programme says it has now paused the movement of workers in Gaza until further notice. That's after one of its teams came under fire there. It happened close to an IDF checkpoint just after they delivered a convoy of humanitarian aid. Meanwhile, Israel is claiming a fully fledged war is underway in the West Bank as it targets so-called Islamic Iranian terrorist infrastructures. And Palestinian authorities have said hospitals are also under siege. Back here at home, a report is suggesting the outlook for living standards for middle-income earners is weak beyond this financial year. Research group the Resolution Foundation looked at forecasts from the Bank of England and from the OBR and warns the slowdown in salary increases could soon be overtaken by rising house costs. The Prime Minister had previously said growth is still his #1 priority. And a charity is warning that teenagers in the UK are the unhappiest in Europe. The Children's Society's annual report identified deepening levels of stress and unhappiness in young people. It also suggested a quarter of young people have low life satisfaction, nearly 9 points higher than the European average. And finally, although not a single ticket has been sold, Oasis are still expecting a sold-out tour, adding now 3 extra dates to the UK next year. Noel Gallagher says that unprecedented demand has prompted the decision to put on more shows, one in Manchester, another in London, and a third in Edinburgh. Tickets go on sale on Saturday. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis, back with you just after 10:30.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good morning, 10:07. This is Britain's Newsroom. Thank you for getting in touch at home, particularly about this potential smoking ban in public places. Stuart said, so where are you meant to smoke if you can't smoke outdoors in public spaces, or is it going to be another smoking tax? Pauline, who is a member, says, when we disagree with what this Prime Minister says, he calls us names like right-wing racists. She says, well, I was born in 1944. I can assure him my generation knows exactly what that means. If the PM carries on like this, then it will be him who divides the people against our great country, divides the people of our great country. When I get together with my friends, we get into a debate. Sometimes we don't come to a conclusion. We agree to disagree. Maybe Labour Party should take a leaf out of our book and think before they call us names.
The smoking ban is going to be incredibly divisive, and I'm not sure which bright spark in government thinks it's a clever idea, but isn't it based on a report by a doctor?
It is. It's based on a report by Dr. Javed Khan. He wants to denormalise smoking. Private homes and streets will not be covered, although Dr. Khan said that he also wanted smoking banned in council houses and other social housing.
Outrageous. So you can't have a fag in your own home,
which you
pay rent for. And if that comes into force, what's going to happen then? You're going to have neighbours snitching on each other. What does that do for community relations?
Well, we saw that, though, in Scotland recently, didn't we, about the fact that you could report somebody for saying something that might be deemed racist at the kitchen table. We're just moving into...
So you can't smoke in the house, so then next thing, you can't have junk food in your house.
Exactly.
You can't have a takeaway if it's junk food, because obesity kills more people now than smoking. It is the thin end of the wedge.
And what worries me about all of this, again, because this Labour Party appear, and I'd say politically the left all across the world, you see it with the Democrats in America as well, because they're cloaking all of this extreme ideology in some sort of virtuous, but it's for your own good, because we are the good people. And if you believe that as an individual you should be able to make free choice about what you do with your own body, no, you can't do that. We are the good people and we know what's best for you.
Yeah, I mean, of course, they will argue they're trying to stop people smoking, which is a good thing. But I would argue it's up to people if they want to smoke. If they want to have the fact, they'll ban it in the street next.
Yeah, and the thing is, public health, like I said yesterday, we did the vaping interview. Public health success has been reducing smoking. It was a win. I don't deny that. Not smoking indoors in public places, not sitting in the office smoking on the desk next to somebody.
Or in a cinema or a theatre.
That has saved lives. Absolutely. That has saved lives. There's no doubt about it. But where do we then push this to? Where do we draw the line on this? Because it will be, as you say, they'll come after your calorie intake. You've eaten too much. I'm so sorry. You've drunk too much. Pleasure, happiness, joy, the things we like, the things that make us smile. It just feels like dour Starmer, like I said yesterday, the drain, not the radiator.
It's going to be a knife through the heart of the pub industry too, and restaurants and hospitality, and they're already struggling.
And Andy says, where's the intelligent opposition? Starmer is drunk on a power circus. That's exactly what we said in the break. He's so... There's nobody opposing him. Where is Rishi Sunak?
Yeah, he's got... You see, they've got... the difference with the left, they've got a majority of 168, 167. They are going to use that to change the government into to this country, into their vision of how it should look. Whereas the Tories had a majority of 80 and squandered it. Which is why we're seeing all these political appointments in the civil service. They are going to get their way because they've got a majority of 168 and he's in a hurry.
Yeah, why?
Net zero, the race to net zero will be even faster.
This agenda, he's absolutely on message. Agenda 2030, it's all there in the document if you want to read it. This is where we're heading. Control, control, control. You can't make decisions about your own life.
Now, moving on, a report by the Institute for Public Policy says regional wealth gaps are growing and the tax system inherited by the government undermines its levelling up ambitions. This is the new government.
So Northerners are projected to have £210,000 less than those in the South East by 2030.
Well, let's talk to financial expert Hilary Salt, who is in Manchester, the capital of the North, some might say. Hilary, I'm tempted to say 'twas ever thus, because there's always been this North-South divide. But this report is suggesting it's getting worse.
Yeah, if we look at the net tax rates paid by region, so that's the total tax paid divided by total revenue, The amount paid by London, I say London when I mean London, the South East, really. The amount paid by London is about 2/3 of what is paid in the rest of the UK. But that gap has widened quite a lot over the past 2 decades. And I'd say there's 3 broad reasons for that if you're looking at the tax side of the equation. First is that income is taxed at higher rates than capital gains, and there are more capital gains made in London than the rest of the UK. The second is that non-work income has more advantageous tax treatment. So, for example, dividends and income from rental properties are not subject to national insurance. And the third is that people in London pay far lower levels of council tax as a proportion of the value of their property than the people in the rest of the UK. So this IPPR report that you just mentioned says that the amounts paid in London are less than half those paid in the North East.
Explain why that people with properties in London, which are traditionally much more expensive than properties in the north, why are they paying less council tax?
Well, I remember that council tax is banded, so once you get to a certain level, you don't pay any more council tax, no matter how much a house is worth. Also, remember that the levels of value placed on properties for council tax purposes were set about 30 years ago now. So, some properties in some parts of the UK have increased by much more than other parts. So if we rebanded everywhere, that would imply more council tax being paid in London.
I mean, Northerners might be earning less and might have less savings, I think, but also things are cheaper up north, Hilary, aren't they? I noticed that when I go home to Manchester and, it's the usual, the example we always use is a coffee. I can pay nearly £5 for a coffee in a cafe down here. Up north, people would keel over if you charge them nearly £3. So things are cheaper up north, aren't they?
They are, but I think, that kind of points to the other half of this equation, because I think that the real problem here that this points to is the fact that there is no productive economy. There's not enough productive economy outside of London. So the total income for per person in London, all people, not just workers, is about £24,000, whereas in the North East, it's about £11,000. And I think what that points to is the fact that, the other way to solve this problem is to increase incomes and increase the productive economy in the north. And that's what I think we really need to do. It's not just tinkering with taxation that will solve this problem. It's making a real difference to the economy.
Hilary, we've got to tell you, your dog has just played a starring role here.
You've got a very extrovert dog there, Hilary. Who's that?
This is Friday.
Does she not know it's Thursday? Well, she was made a very welcome addition to the programme. Hilary, lovely to talk to you. That's Hilary Salter, who's a financial expert.
Thank you.
That's a really interesting What a sweet dog.
That was really sweet. Yeah, really kind of performed in the back there, didn't it? OK, right, moving on. We are going to be talking in just a moment about the Thames Water. So they may hike up customer bills by as much as 59%.
And this is the biggest water company in Britain. It's my water company, it's probably your water company, isn't it? The company is facing severe financial problems, but the chief executive, Chris Weston, though, got a £195,000 bonus for his first 3 months in charge. Yeah. Outrageous.
Just for his first 3 months, he got a £195,000 bonus.
Give it back, is my view.
Honestly, we're joined now by national reporter Charlie Peters. Morning, Charlie. Where are you? And what else do we know about this diabolical situation with the water companies?
Bev, Andrew, good morning. Well, I'm in Reading, and just behind me is the headquarters of Thames Water. As you mentioned, that 59% proposed bills rise by 2030, coming from Britain's largest water utilities company. And that would bring the average annual bill for Thames Water customers to some £696. That's a significant rise on the most recent bills. And as recently as April, they said that they were only going to ask them to raise, I say only, they were going to raise them to 44% by 2030. And it comes at a bit of a back and forth row between Thames Water and Ofwat, the water regulator, which has been proposing water companies that they could only raise bills by some 23% in the same time frame. So it seems to be that the regulator puts forward a figure and then the big water companies such as Thames Water come back with a slightly larger one and then keep pushing further and further. And why are they asking for this money? Well, that chief executive you just mentioned said that the proposed cap from Ofwat is not tenable. They said that it renders their plan uninvestable and could prevent the turnaround and recovery of the company. Andrew, you mentioned the debt that Thames Water is in. It's £15 billion.
Incredible.
The turnaround of the company is vital with so much money owed to investors and more. And its chief executive, Chris Wester, went on to say the money we're asking for from customers will be invested in new infrastructure and improving our services for the benefit of households and the environment. He says that they are not being asked to pay twice, the customers, but to make up for years of focus on keeping bills low. And on that point, he is right, because between 2014 and 2021, bills were pretty consistent. I'm not sure you describe them as low, but they were consistently the same price. That's changed, though, in the last couple of years. There has been a rise, the most recent bills averaging over £500. But this new proposal of reaching some £696 is a large rise, which customers will feel the pinch of, especially as yesterday we had energy giants meeting with the government from the gas and electricity companies, warning about further rises from their end. Ofgem talking about raising the cap in October. We've heard that earlier this year as well. Customers are going to be hit and households will be set to face higher energy, water, gas and electric bills this year.
OK, thank you, Charlie.
What a staggering figure. A water company has debts of £15 billion. That's the GDP of a small country. It's a shocking admission.
And the shareholders have done very, very well out of those companies.
And the Chief Financial Officer's got a £200,000 bonus for the first quarter of the year. Outrageous.
Right, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, he's just arrived in Paris, where he's meeting Emmanuel Macron. There they are, shaking hands, a little pat on the back. All very lovely in the sunshine. And we're going to be taking some of that in just a moment. We'll find out what thrilling conversation they must be having.
He was there last night for the opening of the Paralympics, of course, Starmer.
Yeah. Right, don't go anywhere. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Plenty more to come.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Michael found the recipe for success without going to university. Instead, he went looking for answers inside of a kitchen. The 22-year-old has just finished a level 2 course in professional cookery at UCB, a college in Birmingham.
When I started UCB, I was expecting to be so intense from day one, but it's not. It sort of builds up, so to the point where you get comfortable. And building that comfort is a huge part of becoming a chef, because you need to be comfortable being in your own skin.
This week, tens of thousands of students get their A-level results. The college wants them to remember university isn't the only option after school, and West Midlands Mayor Richard Parker agrees.
University is the right route for lots of our young people, but there are other pathways to getting access to qualifications that will give young people the skills they need to succeed in life.
Further education principal Rosa Wells says apprenticeships and technical courses are also great routes to a career.
Here at University College Birmingham, we offer vocational courses. These are hands-on technical courses that can give people a different opportunity, something different to school. So we've got brilliant facilities that really give students industry standard training.
A skills shortage across the UK means youngsters learning trades are desperately needed. 36% of job vacancies are due to shortages. The Labour government's new body, Skills England, has been created to bring training providers and businesses together with local and national authorities plus unions to target trade gaps and regional requirements. Michael's now finishing his qualification. Where he goes next is down to him.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, 10:22. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. As you can hear, Carol Malone has bustled into the building.
Yeah. It's not me.
You're having a row with somebody, of course.
Amazon driver.
Yeah, well,
going to leave the parcel outside the house for 2 hours. That's smart, isn't it?
Before we get into the papers, what's your view of the proposed ban on smoking?
Well, tell me,
I thought we were talking about that next.
You know what? No, we were going to do that next off. But however,
I think it's so outrageous.
I think it's outrageous. I don't want to live in a society where they dictate to me what I can do and say. And you know, when you think about it, obesity is a way bigger killer now than smoking. So we're going to stop people eating cakes in pub gardens. Or we're going to stop eating chips in pub gardens because it's far...
Because the doctor who wrote the report wants to ban smoking in council
Well,
houses.
but in California, they're starting to do that. There's an apartment block that wants to ban inside everyone smoking. Now, I don't see how someone smoking on the 3rd floor is going to kill you if you're on floor 2. I just don't get it. I do think I hate when I'm outside a hospital and I see people with one leg who've clearly lost it because of smoking. When I see them puffing fags, I think this is not right. There's something wrong with this. Yeah. But I think for the beleaguered hospitality industry, which is only just recovering.
But also, I would very much defend that person with one limb missing. I would still defend their right to smoke if they want to.
This is extraordinary, but I've actually agreed with Carol.
My God.
My chairs are...
I actually hate attempts to control what we put in our bodies. It's for that reason that I think that drugs should be legal as well. I think that smoking, I don't like smoking personally. I don't enjoy it myself, but it's absolutely my right to do it. I think it's ridiculous and stupid, this attempt to ban people from buying cigarettes as well. We have this new escalator law that Sunak's harebrained idea. Unenforceable. So you're going to have a situation in 30 years' time where sort of 45-year-olds are going to have to ask their 46-year-old mates to buy them cigarettes because over a certain threshold.
But you won't be able to buy anything without declaring who you are or your phone identity.
The fundamental point is that people have the right to smoke and other people have the right not to have that smoke forcibly, which is why I agree with a smoking ban indoors. In a pub garden, that is where people go to enjoy themselves. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Think about it. You say people have the right to smoke, and I do hate smoking. As a former smoker, I hate it. However, the National Health has to pick up the bill for your smoking. And yes, lung cancer mortality rates have decreased over the past 10 years by 16% and over the past 30 years by 32%. However, NHS services are picking up the bill. However, I'm still like you. I think it's wrong where we're dictated to about what we can do.
And I'm going to hear smokers shouting at the TV, Cara, saying, I pay a lot of flipping tax on my fags.
And you know what the thing is?
An awful lot.
If the government was determined to ban smoking, it could do it in a heartbeat. It could stop fags tomorrow, but it would lose a lot of duty if it stopped it. And that's why...
Well, no, that would be really bad as well, because then it would just become like any other illegal drug. And it would just become counterfeit, it would become unregulated, become even more dangerous than it is already. Drug prohibition does not work, it never has worked, and cigarettes going the same way, it's just going to have the same...
So what is driving him? As a Labour man, what is driving Sir Keir Starmer to be taking such extraordinarily invasive measures into people's private lives?
I don't know if this actually is going to be policy. Right now, it's speculation. Starmer has...
Well, the Sun has written it pretty hard. They've seen the document.
Front page of the Sun.
It's what they're talking about.
And some people on the Labour front bench, not all, they do have, I suppose, some kind of instincts which you might liken to the nanny state. And I think that is authoritarian. Actually something I suppose you could call it authoritarian, and it's something that is shared by a lot of people in the Conservative Party, because Sunak was exactly the same. Sunak was very much in the nanny state tradition, so I don't think it goes on party political lines. It's not my politics. I suppose it's. I don't describe myself as a libertarian in any way, but I certainly would share that.
Sunak would not have got that smoking ban through with Tory support. It would only have gone through with Labour support. There were so many Tory MPs who were opposed to it.
But it was a free vote.
But anything that smacks of a dictatorship, we should rail against it at every opportunity.
Well, do you think drugs should be legal then, Carol?
Absolutely not.
Well, then why not? What's the difference?
What do you mean, what's the difference?
What's the difference?
What's the difference between shooting up heroin and smoking a few fags a day?
Heroin's not the only drug. It's about what you put into your own body.
The difference between taking crack, the difference between taking cocaine on a regular basis, the difference between smoking, strong weed, which can make you schizophrenic, which can give you lots of other problems. That's why it shouldn't be legalised.
If you know about the risks, and if you're educated the risks, and if they're regulated and taxed and sold at official shops.
So Scotland did exactly what you're talking about.
It didn't legalise drugs.
Well, do you want to let me finish? So Scotland let people go into centres, pop-up centres to shoot up safely.
That's for addicts.
So, yeah, and you don't think everyone who takes heroin is an addict, you know?
Well, heroin is a specific example.
But people they allow safe places for people to take drugs. What's happened? Drug deaths have rocketed. It's the highest drug death centre of Europe, and drug taking has rocketed. In the countries where they've legalised it, like Portugal, which is always held up as the great big example of how it works, it does not. There are more people addicted to drugs in Portugal now than there ever were. Less drug deaths, fewer drug deaths, because people can go safe places to do it, but more drug-addicted people. Young people specifically.
What about for cigarettes then? What about for people who are addicted to cigarettes? Is that, I mean, there are always going to be people who are going to be addicted to drugs or who are going to want to take drugs. It's about the criminality issue. It's about whether we are going to put people through.
As well.
Yes, of course, and that's why there should be education about all these things. But I just don't agree with putting people who take any kind of drug through the criminal justice.
But on the criminality thing, on the smoking, how on earth would this ban be enforced?
It couldn't possibly be.
I mean, are the police going to have to go outside a hospital and say, you're arrested?
Well, do you know what? I can see the cops under this government doing exactly that, because they went after an 11-year-old boy yesterday from the Southport riot, so why wouldn't they do that? We haven't got enough coppers to police that.
It would just be a ticket.
And Farage said today, he said this will be the end of pubs. It will be the end of pubs.
We're going to be talking to Nigel Farage about this, actually, a little bit later in the show as well. Obviously, he has really strong opinions on this.
And I have to say, you know me a long time when I used to smoke. I stopped a long time ago. I'm appalled by this.
Can we just ask a straw poll of people who hang out with politicians a bit more than I do, in your experience? Do more Labour MPs smoke than Tory MPs?
I think you wouldn't be able to say.
You don't think so? Because when I think about my Labour voting mates, they're all the ones lighting up, putting the world to rights.
When you go on the Commons terrace, that'd be interesting. Will they ban it from the Commons? Will they ban it from the Commons terrace?
They have to.
They puff away on the Commons terrace.
That's what I mean, exactly.
You need to film them doing
I think that vaping is another conversation that we should have, because I really think it's unfair when vaping is kind of bracketed with smoking, that you're not allowed to smoke or vape, unless it's somewhere like public transport.
If you're talking about health, we don't know what the long-term health effects of vaping will be
This is nicotine.
The chemical... Well, nicotine is not the problem. Nicotine is not the dangerous thing in fags. It's the chemicals.
But it's the side effects.
But it's not going to give you lung cancer. It's not going to...
You don't know what it's going to give you.
You don't know that.
You don't know that.
Too soon.
From the evidence we have, it's much, much safer. No one argues it's as dangerous as smoking.
But it's also luring young people into smoking,
and it's not safer than doing neither, which is the idea.
I think we can all agree on that.
Have you ever stood beside anyone smoking a peach-flavoured vape?
Yes.
Knocks you sick.
Yes,
I mean,
it does.
Worse than
They're
a normal
very, very
cigarette.
strong, but you can see why children like them.
I was in WH Smith. I didn't know WH Smith sell vapes. I'm amazed.
Oh, they do sell vapes.
You get your stuff ready for kids going back to school, and I'll have a vape.
Have a vape.
Yeah. Right, Carol, Jonathan, that's it. I'm afraid.
You'll be back.
For that section, you'll be back in a little while, though. Now, the news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. It's just after 10:30, and the top story from the newsroom. Well, as we were hearing from Bev and Andrew, representatives of the nighttime industry say potential plans to ban smoking in some outdoor areas, including in pubs and restaurants, is, they say, causing concern across the sector. The government says it won't comment on leaks first reported in the Sun newspaper, but has confirmed it is looking at a range of measures to make Britain smoke-free. Well, the Prime Minister has arrived in France today for talks with the President Emmanuel Macron, part of a wider push to rebuild post-Brexit relations with the EU. Sir Keir Starmer's talks with the French leaders will focus on a new treaty expected to take 6 months to finalise, with hopes for a 2025 signing. Illegal migration is also understood to be on the agenda as leaders aim to enhance intelligence sharing to tackle smuggling gangs. And it follows news that over 20,000 migrants have now crossed the English Channel into the UK this year, with hundreds arriving just yesterday. 2 men have been arrested on suspicion of murder after a wheelchair user was stabbed in East London. Police found Jade Anthony Barnett, pictured here, injured after being called to a fight. The 38-year-old, who lost his leg in a motorbike accident in 2007, died at the scene in Clapton. He's been described by family and friends as cheerful and caring. Troubled Thames Water says it needs to hike customer bills by nearly 60% in the next 5 years, or warns it will become uninvestable. Britain's biggest water supplier made the demands in its response to regulator Ofwat's proposal to cap household water charges. Our reporter Charlie Peters will be in the Thames Water headquarters area in Reading for us later this morning. And not a single ticket's been sold so far, but Oasis are expecting a sold-out tour, adding 3 extra dates to the UK section of that tour next year. Noel Gallagher says unprecedented demand has prompted the decision to put on more shows, one in Manchester, another in London and in Edinburgh. Tickets go on sale on Saturday. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you at 11 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Well, let's take a quick look at the markets for you this morning. The pound will buy you $1.3192 and €1.1895. The price of gold this hour, £1,911.34 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 8,364 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Up next, we're marking the 1-year anniversary of the ULEZ expansion. I don't know why I'm looking happy. I'm not happy. It's awful.
We're making the point because we both loathe it. And I don't have a car.
Well, it turns out that 70% of people haven't paid their fines. You naughty lot. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hey, good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Plenty of sunny spells around as we go through today, but also quite a few showers for some of us as well. We've already seen some of those showers developing across far northwestern parts, but they are going to become more widespread as we go through today, especially across Scotland, but some showers for Northern Ireland and northern western parts of England and Wales as well. Further south and east, a greater chance of staying dry, and here there will be a decent amount of sunshine on offer too, and in the sunshine it will feel pleasantly warm, although temperatures not quite as high as they were yesterday. More showers to come as we go through the end of the day across parts of Scotland. There will be some sunny spells in between those showers, but worth bearing in mind as some of the showers could be a little bit on the heavy side, and there could be some brisk winds at times towards the Northern Isles too. Also some showers as we go through the end of the afternoon into the evening for Northern Ireland and some parts of England and Wales, but here the showers really are going to be pretty isolated. Most of us will avoid them, and it is going to therefore be a pretty dry end to the day with some late sunshine around as well. Many of the showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland will actually clear away as we go overnight, so for many it is going to be a dry night with some clear skies, and with that we are going to see temperatures dipping a little bit lower than you might expect for the time of year. It is still just about summer for the time being, and we could see some fog patches across parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and southwest England first thing on Friday morning. Through Friday itself there could be some further blustery showers affecting the far north-northeast of Scotland, and perhaps perhaps some brisk winds towards the southeast at times and 1 or 2 showers elsewhere, but on the whole it's looking like a dry and often sunny day, and with that again feeling pleasantly warm in the sunshine. Temperatures ranging from mid to high teens in the north to low, possibly mid-20s further south. Bye-bye.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Thursday morning. In Bedfordshire, the northbound M1 very slow with the lane closed due to an accident. This is going to affect you just after junction 10 for the Luton Airport Spur Road, queued back to junction 9 at Redburn in the roadworks. In Essex, the southbound M11, a lane closed on the exit Slip Road due to a broken down vehicle at junction 6 of the M25. And in London, the anti-clockwise M25, one lane is blocked due to a broken down car, junction 28 for Brentwood and the Brook Street roundabout to junction 27 for the M11. And in Hampshire, the M3 northbound, one lane is closed due to a vehicle having its tyre changed, junction 6 at Basingstoke to junction 5 at Hook. And in Warwickshire, the M6 toll northbound queuing with the lane closed due to an accident. That's going to affect you junction 3 on the M6 toll for Tamworth to junction 4 at the Weeford interchange. And also at Rainham Marshes in London, the A13 London bound remains closed near to the Wennington interchange. Across the UK, you're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
The time is 10:37. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner. Now, the London Mayor Sadiq Khan said expanding the capital's low ultra-emission zone to all 32 boroughs was the most effective tool available to quickly and meaningfully cut air pollution.
And make lots of money. A year later, he claims it's working better than expected, bringing cleaner air to 5 million more Londoners.
But with ULEZ charges forcing many off the road, it's £12.50 on top of the congestion charge and onto the underground. How clean is the air on London's tube? Ray Addison went to find out.
Transport for London calls it tube dust. A rather whimsical way of describing what's floating around in the air in the 161-year-old underground system. TfL says the dust is a mix of metal particles, most of which are iron oxide, caused by track and wheel wear and braking, organic matter like skin and hair, and mineral dust.
This air quality monitor measures the number of fine particles per cubic metre. When you breathe them in, they're small enough to go into your lung and even enter your bloodstream, and have been associated with diseases including asthma, lung cancer, and even Alzheimer's. The World Health Organization says breathing an annual average of anything above 5 micrograms isn't safe. Right now, it's 6. So let's go down into the underground and see how polluted it really is.
We carried out tests at more than 10 London Underground stations, finding levels as high as 171 per cubic metre.
I think maybe some improvements need to be done.
I got asthma, I am a smoker as well, and I feel that I die there, man.
Yeah, the tube's horrible. It's just musty and warm and feels dirty. It's just horrible.
Sounds bad, it does. It should be filtered more, I guess.
You can't shut it down, can you? Because you need it. Well, they should do something about it, yeah.
The Mayor of London's been accused of expanding ULEZ simply to increase revenues, which he denies. However, if he continues to downplay air quality here on London's underground, Londoners can be excused for having their doubts. I think I'll walk home.
Ray Addison, GB News.
That's a pretty shocking report. As one who uses the tube all the time, I'll leave here on the tube, and it is horrible.
Yeah, it is.
It's
horrible.
filthy down there.
It's filthy. I didn't like the idea that I'm breathing in people's hair and skin cells. That was a new one to me. Well, Lily Matson, TfL's Chief Safety, Health and Environment Officer, says action is being taken to improve air quality both above and underground in London. Our monitoring shows that dust levels on the tube remain well below limits set by the Health and Safety Executive, and on most of our network are below the recommendations from the Institute of Occupational Medicine, which are set significantly lower.
However, we're not complacent and developed a number of innovative new cleaning regimes to reduce dust further. This includes the use of industrial backpack dust cleaners, which are one part of our multi-million-pound tube cleaning programme. She hasn't been down there lately because it's filthy down there.
What's a multi-million-pound backpack cleaning programme? Oh, honestly, some days I just think we've woken up in a
Parallel universe.
planet.
Let's talk to Donnahay McCarthy, who is the director of the Climate Media Coalition. Donnahay, you are a cheerleader for this wretched expansion of ULEZ, are you not? And tell us why.
Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, Bev. I think the word I think you mean by wretched, you mean wonderful improvements for quality of air for London's hundreds of thousands of people who suffer lung diseases. There are 600,000 people, Andrew, with asthma, and there are another 250,000 people suffering from pollution-related lung diseases like lung cancer and heart diseases. The ULEZ has removed 50% of the polluting vehicles from London's roads already, which is a huge success. And the air in outer London is now around 20% cleaner of those particulates you were just talking about. So for people with asthma, it's a really good news story.
So the cars are stopped in London altogether.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Andrew.
Are you're not really going to be happy until you ban cars from the roads altogether?
Well, we do need vehicles to get disabled people around, for the economy to work. But in a city of like 8 million people, Andrew, we do have to prioritise public transport, cycling and walking if we're not going to seize up our economy. And the real problem economically on London's roads is too many private cars using them. And so any steps to reduce that, to enable our economy to thrive, to tackle climate change and to actually make a nicer city, I think is positive. So I would actually also talk about the impacts on poor people. 80% of poor people, Bev and Andrew, don't have a car in London. And what we should be talking about is the huge impact on them of the fare rises over the last 10 years and the abolition of the free morning travel for pensioners. I think it would be brilliant if the Daily Mail could campaign for restoration of the free travel for pensioners in the morning, because that means pensioners, if they want to go and do childcare for the kids, now have to pay extra to go, and that's just mad.
Look, Donnahay, the evidence is basically suggesting that preventing people from getting to work or finding work is going to have a much harsher impact on health than a bit of car pollution. And the people who are affected by this, as you say that 8% of poor people don't own a car. Well, that depends on your definition of poor. If you're a window cleaner or you're a decorator and you're a gardener and you need to get your vehicle around and you haven't got the money to renew it, this massively impacts your ability to carry out your job.
Well, I hear your concern for poor people getting to work. So, Bev, why do you not support the reversal of the huge inflation in train fares imposed on outer Londoners going into central London?
I massively support that. I think the train fares are outrageous.
But Donnahay,
we're talking about a tiny number. There's now 90...
No, hang on. Donnahay, we're not talking about a tiny number. Painter and decorators can't take their equipment on a train or a tube. Ladders don't fit on trains. They need a vehicle, and they're now having to pay even more money to get to work. By definition, they're not very well paid, and this is really hurting them. And it's hurting their ability to work, and that affects their health. The vast majority of there's been 17,000 vanmen have had their vans replaced by the scrappage scheme, and actually I think it's be useful if anybody listening today, whether they live in London or know people live in London, the scrappage scheme is ending on the 7th of September, Bev and Andrew. So if you want to get it between £2,000 and £9,000 to replace your car, van or minibus, the scrappage scheme is ending on the 7th of September. So it's really crucial that poorer people who still have polluting cars know they can get the money to replace that car with an equivalent second-hand car that is clean, and they will not have to pay the charges.
This isn't really about health, though, is it? This is about control of the population, particularly in London. We know that obviously this has been you have ULEZ in lots of cities across the country now, but this is just about making money out of people wanting to go about their business and live their lives.
Well, if it was a money-making measure, Bev, then why would the mayor be paying people to get rid of their polluting cars so they don't have to pay the fine? It is actually designed to reduce the number of people paying fines. What we're trying to do is a carrot and stick. If you wish to choose to retain a polluting vehicle, you have to pay a fine. If you want to get rid of your polluting vehicle, we'll pay you to get rid of it. And actually what will happen over the next 4 or 5 years of ULEZ is as cars get replaced, the amount of money being paid in fines will go down, and that's not a money-making measure. What we should be doing, I think, as a money-making measure, which we do need to fund public transport in London, which has the highest fares in the world, we need to actually tax rich people using black cabs in central London. Why should they not pay congestion charge, unlike everybody else? the poor people that Andrew just talked about, the workers and the tradespeople have to pay congestion charge. Why shouldn't rich people using a black cab pay congestion charge? And we use that money to fund poor people's pensioners' free travel again.
We're short on time. Just one quick question. Are you in favour of this proposed ban on smoking in public places, including pub car parks?
No, I don't think that makes much sense, personally.
What? No. I'm just... Are you a smoker?
No, I've never smoked, and I said I don't. I think that's one of the lower issues on pollution in London is people smoking in the car park. I think that's a bit excessive, personally. But I think what we do need to tackle, if we're going to tackle, we need to stop burning stuff in London. That includes gas boilers, which are the second highest source of pollution in central London. So maybe we agree on that one, Bev.
Thanks, Donahue McCarthy, there, director of the Climate Media Coalition. I just wanted to see where he sat on the whole civil liberties issue.
Up next, don't miss it. Nigel Farage is going to give us his thoughts on the outdoor smoking ban. I suspect there'll be rather trenchant views. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Luis Elizondo says that he worked at the Pentagon and that he knows that they have recovered material that is not from this Earth. He resigned after believing his government wasn't taking the threat of UFOs seriously. So have they been covering up alien material from us?
I don't think the claims that are being made in Luis Elizondo's book, Imminent, are new, but I think what we have to pay attention to is the seniority of, one, Luis Elizondo, and two, the people who recruited him, and indeed the people he worked for, which was the Department of Defence and the Pentagon.
You think that he was in a position to know about this?
Yeah, he would have been. He would have been speaking to the individuals who were taking part in these investigations. You're showing some of those clips just now that potential incursions by objects controlled by a non-human intelligence, potentially. We're not saying alien necessarily, but something non-human.
Seems a bit far-fetched to me, Andrew. I'm a sceptic.
When people say sceptical, I think as a species, we're relatively new in terms of what we do in space. But right now, we've got a robot on Mars that drives about and has a little helicopter drone that every so often comes up, flies about away 10 feet from it to collect samples and comes back. Now, a species a couple of hundred years down the line from us would have far better technology than that. So who's to say what we're encountering aren't just really advanced probes from something else that's just slightly ahead of us in the technological scale? I don't think that's too far stretch of the imagination.
When you do see things like what we just saw there, which was made public, the New York Times did a big expose on all of this, and actually, you know, the world didn't end. We weren't all outside fighting each other for scraps of food and burning down the nearest Lidl, were we? We just thought, oh, that's quite cool.
I think now we have to look at it and maybe take a step back, look at the people coming out now, talking about UFOs and thinking, is there something to this that we've maybe been overlooking?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10:50. So smoking could be banned in pub gardens, outdoor restaurants and outside of sports stadiums.
So joining us now is the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage. Nigel, morning to you. You are a smoker. You are a parliamentarian. Is this going to be something you'll be raising in the Commons next week?
Absolutely. And also, I'm a pub goer. And isn't it interesting that our politicians are a strange bunch, you know? They're not really very sociable. And very few in the House of Commons, I suspect, go into pubs. I love pubs because everyone's a parliament. You know, we discuss local issues, national issues, international issues. They're really important places. And back in 2006, when smoking was banned indoors, pubs and clubs took a 20% financial hit. It's one of the contributors to 7,000 of them closing over the last 20 years. If you ban people smoking in gardens and ban people smoking outside the front of pubs, that is the end of the British pub. Gone. No more boozers. There'll be restaurants that masquerade as pubs, but there will be no more pubs. And that's because, you know, quite a high proportion of pub goers enjoy the odd smoke as well. So I think it's massive government overreach. I think it's an intrusion that is just a step way too far. Because if you're outside, there's no reason why your smoke should affect anybody else at all. But I also think there's a danger here. And the danger is this. If you turn through regulation and through tax on the price, a legal activity into effectively an illegal activity, you hand it straight to the criminal gangs. And this has happened in Australia. A packet of cigarettes in Australia is the equivalent of 35 quid.
Good Lord.
So what has happened? What has happened is the black market in tobacco is now huge. No self-respecting criminal dealer bothers with cocaine anymore. There's no money in cocaine. No, it's cigarettes, it's tobacco. And gang warfare in Melbourne has led to, wait for it, 97 fire bombings of shops and houses in the last 2 years. If you overtax a product, you make it almost impossible to use legally, you drive it into the hands of the wrong guys. We will not be smoke-free by 2030. Secure. We will not be drug-free by 2030. We won't be alcoholism-free. We won't be obesity-free. You know, no one's encouraging anyone to smoke, but please, please, government steps too far, it'll have the wrong effect.
Nigel, we always suspected that Keir Starmer would come in with a fairly authoritative view of how he was going to run the country, that he knows best, that the collective is always more important than the individual. But have you been surprised by how much he has accelerated all sorts of changes? I'm thinking particularly as well in terms of free speech in such a short period of time.
Yes and no. I mean, let's not forget, please, that Rishi Sunak was putting forward the most ludicrous law where in a decade's time, a 25-year-old could buy a packet of cigarettes and a 24-year-old couldn't. So both parties are on this direction. And by the way, it'll be alcohol next. The World Health Organization now saying there is no safe limit for alcohol. But I think the attack, and we heard it in Germany yesterday, you know, worried about the snake oil of populism. But the only way to deal with it is delivery. Well, 1,100 people over the channel in the last 2 days is not delivery. I think Starmer is genuinely scared that the mass of the population are deeply unhappy with legal and illegal immigration at these levels. And so the attempt to smear everybody who feels that way as being far right, to take some people out and put them in prison for saying unpleasant things on Facebook or elsewhere. These, to me, are symptoms of fear.
He would say, of course, that what he's doing, Nigel, is keeping us all safe, that he wants to save lives and that this smoking ban is only part of that. What would you say to that suggestion?
We are not going to be smoke-free by 2030. It isn't going to happen. I mean, you know, I'm old enough to remember decades ago being told there'd be a war on drugs. Well, how successful has that been? Millions of people taking drugs, illegal drugs every week in this country. There is a limit to what government can do. But if you drive a legal activity into the hands of the criminals, you make the situation worse, not better. And I believe that very, very strongly. And yeah, you know, his authoritarian nature is coming through, but it won't have any positive effect on public health whatsoever.
You've only been in the Commons a few weeks, Nigel, but what is your sense? Do you think he could get this through the Commons? Because I don't think Sunak would have got his ludicrous idea of stopping 14-year-olds buying fags in 10 years' time through the Commons with Tory support, because there were so many Tories were opposed to it. But Labour has a huge majority now. This could actually happen.
Yes, I think it probably will happen, Andrew, and I suspect most Conservatives will support it. I mean, there is so little difference between these two parties. The Conservative Party that you and I might remember from our youth, that believed in small state and individual liberty, I think is a long time gone. So I suspect this will go through the Commons. I will probably never go to a pub again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking this morning, if you are a smoker and you like going to the pub, this is literally the kind of thing that would make you want to leave this country and go and live somewhere else.
Yeah, what with that and rising taxes and regulation and all those things. And here's the worry. I mean, it's a separate point, but, you raised the point, Bev. But the real worry is this. It's not the rich that are leaving Britain. Some are. It's the 30-something entrepreneurs that are leaving Britain.
Yeah,
they're seeing it as a place that is lacking in opportunity. And isn't it ironic that our former partners in the European Union, in Italy...
I'm going to have to let you go because of time. That's Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, and why he's going to oppose that smoking ban.
Sorry, Nigel.
Good.
It's the final week to see how you could win an incredible £30,000 in cash. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. Time is ticking. Get your entry in now. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Morning, 11 a.m. on Thursday, the 29th of August, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Very good morning. So should smoking be banned outside? Ministers are considering stopping smokers lighting up outside of the pubs, outside sports stadiums or children's play areas. We're going to have somebody to defend the idea next.
And Thames Water, the struggling water company, says bills will have to rise by more than £260 a year, a 59% rise. Are they joking?
And they've let down the BBC. This is what BBC boss Tim Davie has said about presenters Hugh Edwards and Jermaine Jenis after their recent scandals. And Tim Davie has told staff they must build trust with the viewers again.
And Get Britain Building. Permission for 300,000 new homes will be forced through as ministers aim to end the housing crisis and drive growth. This is coming from Angela Rayner.
That phrase, force through. We're going to force through. There's a theme here, isn't there? We're going to force you to do things whether you like it or not, and we're going to stop you doing things you want to do.
So the local council may say, we don't want these houses here. The government is going to say, you're having them.
And also, that we haven't really got into the meat of that Tim Davies story from the BBC, but I think if I was Jermaine Jenas and I was being used as alongside Hugh Edwards as an example of somebody that let down the BBC, I'd be furious.
Yeah, Edwards is a convicted paedophile who could be sent to prison next month.
And Jermaine Jenas apparently sent some inappropriate things on text, but he says there's two sides to that story. That's really shocking. Right, it's a busy morning here. We're here for another hour. Don't go anywhere. Here's Sam with the news.
Bev, Andrew, thank you very much, and good morning to you. Just coming up to 2 minutes past 11. And the top story this morning, well, ministers are believed to be looking at a potential smoking ban for outdoor spaces, including pub gardens and in parks. The government, though, says it won't comment on what the Sun newspaper has called secret Whitehall papers, but has confirmed it is considering a range of measures to make Britain smoke-free. It comes after Labour said it would resurrect Rishi Sunak's flagship smoking ban, which was, of course, shelved before the general election. The Prime Minister has arrived for talks with Emmanuel Macron in Paris this morning as part of a wider push to rebuild post-Brexit relations with the EU. Sir Keir Starmer's talks with French leaders are expected to focus on a new treaty that will take 6 months to finalise, with hopes for a 2025 signing. Illegal migration is also on the agenda as leaders aim to enhance intelligence sharing to tackle smuggling gangs. Earlier, the Prime Minister also met British Paralympians after attending last night's opening ceremony in Paris. Well, just some breaking news coming to us from Lewis Crown Court this morning. A van driver has been convicted for smuggling a group of migrants in a hidden compartment from France to Newhaven in Sussex. Those migrants were found banging and screaming for help, the court were told, as they were slowly starved of oxygen. Jurors at Lewis Crown Court this morning unanimously found Anis Al-Mustafa, a father of two, is guilty of trafficking those 7 migrants in a specially adapted van on board a ferry. Crew members on that ship used an axe to free the migrants after hearing their pleas for help. The 43-year-old will be sentenced next Friday. Meanwhile, 2 men have been arrested by police in London following a knife attack on a wheelchair user in the east of the city. Police found Jade Anthony Barnett injured after being called to a fight. The 38-year-old, who lost his leg in a motorbike accident in 2007, died at the scene in Clapton. He has been described today by friends and family as cheerful and caring. Troubled Thames Water says it needs to hike customer bills by nearly 60% by 2030, or warns it could become uninvestable. Britain's biggest water supplier made the demand in its response to regulator Ofwat's proposal to cap household water charges. Well, our reporter Charlie Peters is at Thames Water's headquarters in Reading with more for us.
Thames Water said that Ofwat's proposed cap is not tenable and renders our plan uninvestable and could prevent the turnaround and recovery of the company. Well, as this row continues between the largest water utilities company and the regulator, some concerns have been raised about the bonuses for the Chief Financial Officer and the CEO of Thames Water, stretching over into the millions.
And plenty more from Charlie Peters throughout the rest of this morning there in Reading. Well, Conservative leadership hopeful Tom Tugendhat is expected to accuse Labour of having no plans and no vision to improve the country. In a speech later, it suggested the Shadow Security Minister will also allege the government is being dishonest about its tax choices. He wants to make it clear that Labour are, he says, pretending they have no option because of a so-called financial black hole. The financial watchdog says woeful budgeting at the Home Office is causing repeated overspends on the asylum system. For the past 3 years, the department set aside £110 million for asylum operations. However, data from the Institute for Fiscal Studies suggests the actual spend averaged £2.6 billion a year during that time. Labour insists it is cleaning up what it calls the mess to deliver controlled and managed borders. Experts are warning we could face a surge in measles cases across the country as children return to school in the coming days. The UK Health Security Agency is urgently asking parents to make sure their children are protected against the illness. Their figures show outbreaks since autumn 2023 have resulted in the highest number of cases in the country since 2012. A charity is warning teenagers in the UK are among some of the unhappiest in Europe. The Children's Society's annual report identified deepening levels of stress and unhappiness in young people, suggesting a quarter have low life satisfaction, nearly 9 points higher than the European average. And although not a single ticket has been sold so far, Oasis are already expecting a sold-out tour. They've added 3 extra dates in the UK next year. Noel Gallagher says unprecedented demand has prompted the decision to put on 3 more shows, one in Manchester, another in London and in Edinburgh. Tickets go on sale this Saturday. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, I'll be back with you just after 11:30.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Britain's Newsroom, time is 11:07. We found someone to talk to who actually supports the government's idea of banning smoking in pub gardens and small parks, and if the author of the report gets his way, banning smoking in council houses. Dennis McShane, you're in favour of this, apparently. Former Labour Minister, of course.
I'm against death. I'm against killing people. It's a very old-fashioned notion. It's taken us a long time to get here. I remember when I was in the last Labour government and we started bringing it in gently. Cataclysmic rows with people like John Reid. You remember him? I do. You very intelligent guy. He was obsessed, puffing away, and Defence Secretary. My God, the rows I had with him over smoking, and it just struck me as being bonkers. All my life going into working men's clubs, pubs, clubs, posh clubs. Even I can remember tube trains having compartments. I mean, you're probably too young to remember that.
Ken Livingstone found it.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I'm all for maximum getting rid of smoking from our country.
Would you ban it completely?
Oh, I don't know you can ban it.
Would you?
If I could, God, I mean, we've banned so many other things over the last 200 years. The scientists began to tell us the damage they did. And it always made a great fuss, and smoking is one of the last hangouts. So, yes, on the whole, I would I do the most I can to protect my grandchildren from this.
This is what I find it so depressing, Dennis, when people on the left say, I don't like death, because that would also suggest, therefore, that people on the right like death, and that is obviously a ridiculous suggestion or sort of comparison to make. There are lots of things that we do which are dangerous for us. Do you cycle?
Yes.
Very
now,
dangerous.
I find cycling too dangerous for me to do, but I would never try and stop you from cycling.
Well, what we have done, which I think is correct, and there's a very interesting story by Peter Hitchens, occasionally a guest here, in the Daily Mail, big one today, of how a friendly little cycle path, walking path near where he lives in Oxfordshire, a young man was run down by an e-bike going far too fast. And I think Peter's onto something. E-bikes are out of control now. They go far too fast. They don't make any noise. You don't know that they're coming like a car. So in general terms, but on the whole, I'm very happy when I see a cycle lane and I'm protected from death.
But that's not the point. The point is that I would defend your right to cycle even though I find it dangerous. And yet you wouldn't defend my right to be able to smoke in a... I don't smoke, and I've never smoked, but you wouldn't defend my right to smoke in a beer garden.
I certainly wouldn't defend anybody's right to puff into the air a noxious fume that can kill little children. I'm sorry. I mean, lung cancer... No.
But did you? Have you?
Yes.
And don't you think they've probably done far more damage? You're going to ban cars?
No, simply because the car in itself isn't the problem. It is the driver. But when you smoke, you are just not just polluting, making smelly, making horrible. For God's sake, you and I are all journalists of a certain generation. Did you really enjoy going into those newsrooms where the news desks were full of ashtrays and stubbed out cigs?
And that was the right thing to do. Because
Exactly.
that was the right thing to do because it was passive smoking. It was the effects on other people. But what we're talking about here, taking this as far as this report wants it to go, which is people in their council houses, sat in their kitchen, their front room, can't have a cigarette.
Well, I think we should be a little bit realistic. I don't think there's going to be a smoking police Gestapo. Actually, it'd be quite nice to see a few more police on the streets when Tony Blair...
With this nonsense.
No. When Tony Blair came in, one of our most popular moves was to put 20,000 so-called community support officers. But they all wore police uniform, and certainly in working-class Rotherham, people were so happy to see cops on the street. The first thing the Tories...
people's door and saying, put your cigarette out.
I doubt if that's going to happen.
But what about drinking? Yeah, but about drinking next? Alcohol, it kills.
Well, I was curious again. I don't want to do news review for your own dear colleagues on your show, but Mike O'Leary, I think one of the most innovative, dynamic travel bosses in my lifetime, has said the thing, and it shocks me, I'm at Stansted at 5:30 in the morning, getting a Ryanair somewhere, and the lads are bevying up in the Wetherspoons
bar. And he says they should be restricted to 2 pints.
2 pints before getting on the plane, half...
When he then sells alcohol to them on his planes?
He can, but it's quite difficult, actually, the tiny portions they serve.
Hang on, the vodkas are a double.
Well, all right.
Hang on, he's a hypocrite.
If you're going to get that many vodkas to get smashed getting off the plane, then I think he'd have to stop that as well.
But can you believe we're having this conversation? I have to pinch myself every day at the moment that we're having this conversation about whether a sentient adult human being should be told how many drinks they can have in an airport.
Well, John, because, sorry, you are my eyesight's very bad. You sound and look just like John Reid without the accent, telling me that he can't believe that Labour is proposing to stop working-class people having a cigarette where they want in their own working men's club.
But the evidence of passive smoking was categorical. Like, that's
OK, well, I would guess that more people today, because we have reduced smoking, more people today are dying from liver and kidney and bladder problems, serious problems related to excessive consumption of booze. And I'm not puritanical on it. That's easy enough to say.
He's killing more people now. And smoking. What are you going to do about that now?
And it would be fabulous, in my humble judgment, if we could adopt the similar policies as you see. I know you hate the word Europe. Talk about Japan or Korea if you don't like the word Europe. But other grown-up countries do have, from day one, quite clear guidelines on fitness, on what you buy, the muck that goes into modern food. No, I eat it like anybody else. I get my Greggs, sausage and bacon roll, just now and then, not all the time, but it's a treat. I've given up on McDonald's, and I'm certainly not going to buy Heinz's new product, which they're putting spaghetti carbonara in a tin, because, excuse me.
But you see, but this is the irony. I don't think for a second Keir Starmer will clamp down on the huge transnational food corporations. He won't clamp down on them, because that's what you're talking about. We need to take all the chemicals or the rubbish out of our food. He won't have the backbone to do that. What he'll do is he'll say, you can't have another bottle of wine this week, you've had too many, you can't buy it.
And he's going to close down the pub industry.
Well, I've noticed that the GBNews green room, as they're called, is the first green room, and I've been in them now for nearly 40 or 50 years, either working for the BBC or as a guest, and it's completely dry, so congratulations.
Completely dry?
Yeah, no alcohol.
I don't think you get alcohol when you go to morning TV on any channel, do you?
I don't actually.
Really?
Sadly.
No.
Sadly. God, listening to some of the morning shows, they all sound as they're well away.
Well, we've got to, because you are the former Europe Minister. Starmer has seen Scholz, the German Chancellor, 5 times since he became Prime Minister, Macron 4 times. Is he going to take us back into some form of EU arrangement?
You'd like him to? I would like us to get back to when we were trading, when we're not going to have to queue for an hour next year. I just want to treat the British citizens, give them the same rights that European citizens have. Now, on Starmer, let's go back to that point. He is, I think, repairing some of the damage, because the language from so many Tory ministers, Liz Truss, do you remember when she was asked, Emmanuel Macron, friend or foe, when she was just running to become Prime Minister? Oh, the jury's still out. You don't insult partners like that. It's dumb. I mean, I don't like Trump. If he becomes President of America, I respect him from the office.
Talking about a trade deal with Germany. Germany can't do a trade deal with anybody because it's part of the EU.
Yeah,
It's bogus.
Well, I was surprised when it was suggested, I haven't looked at all the small print, that there'd be trade deals as part of it. It is mainly on security, where in fact Germany, I think, is letting all of us down because of right-wing liberals who are refusing to allow spending of money. Because Scholz is in a coalition; he's on 15%. He's out. Most. A lot of very good commentators say he won't get there next year. Forgive me if I speak German. I'll get there myself in the autumn. I'll come back and tell you what I think is going to happen. But yeah, it's going to be very, very tricky, and there are regional elections where the AfD, a bit, if you like, the equivalent of Reform, none of these comparisons are directly accurate, stand a good chance of doing well, because there are too many Germans, especially in East Germany, who were just ignored by the German elites, just as there are too many Brits, especially in the north, who are ignored by the Tory elites. And if you don't bring all citizens of a country with you, some of them will turn around and give you the equivalent of 2 fingers, and that can mean voting far right. But Starmer, I think it's right just to try and just have friendly relations, but on trade, I'd love to see the small print, because I tweeted this all day yesterday. You can't Germany can't break its own laws, and Germany is the fanatic for trade rules, agreeing with every other country in Europe, because that's why they export so well. Unfortunately, we don't have an export industry because of the quality of our bosses and the quality of our no apprenticeships. We've got one of the weakest industries in Europe.
Thank you.
We found somebody who supports the government's authoritarian ban on smoking.
We've had messages from home. Glenn has said at home, thank you, Bev and Andrew, for challenging a minority tribe view on banning smoking. The minority tribe, he says 20% of the voting population voted for Sir Keir Starmer.
You're part of the minority tribe, Dennis.
Always have been.
That's why the only thing I can think is that he's not going to be there that long, because only 30% of people who voted for him, and he's got 2/3 of the seat. 2/3 of the seats on 30% of the votes.
34% of the votes.
34%. Thank you very much.
Up next, pensioners will have to answer 243 questions correctly to keep their winter fuel allowance. Are you outraged by that? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Susie, let's start with you, and you will say that being a mum is the equivalent of a second full-time job.
Yeah, I mean, I think any mum would say that. But, you know, it's a massive privilege to be a mother. It's a massive privilege to, to have children. But it's an incredible amount of work. Most people would argue that you are, it's a privilege and you don't do it for this, but actually you are contributing to the economy, because you're also producing the future people that are going to go into work.
If men were doing the lion's share of the childcare as well, everyone would know about it, but women don't shout about it. They put up and get on with it. But times are changing, aren't they, Reem? And I think, there's nobody here suggesting that women need special favours, but they need to have certain understanding within the workplace. There's arguments, isn't there, for Pregnant Then Screwed, who's campaigning 100% for meritocracy, but they want to see things like flexible working so that women can work around childcare responsibilities, and they want to be able to make sure that women aren't squeezed out of the labour market because they simply can't juggle both things.
Absolutely. I mean, look, being a mother is one of the most incredible things that any woman can do. And I think it's wonderful that so many women are able to work and have children. I think it's wonderful. I think we should have the utmost respect for every single woman that is able to balance and juggle all of that. However, I think we need to be having these conversations about how best employers can cater towards different people's needs. We want to be encouraging parents to be working as well as having children and contributing to the economy. But it is incredibly unfair if we begin to give those particular people preferential treatment in the workplace. And I think that some of their childless colleagues will begin to resent them.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 11:21. This is Britain's Newsroom. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce with Carol Malone and Jonathan Lister.
Can I just point out here that GB News really need to have another seat here? Because,
Would you stop? Because that's
I
a new
am
seat.
going
That's a
down
new
by the
seat.
second.
You've obviously broken it.
I have not broken it.
Obviously broken
And I've even got 3 cushions on here, and I'm still a foot below you.
We're going to
tiny.
have to turn that out to the repair shop.
If you want to just hoik yourself up a minute, Carol.
I can't hike it up.
Well, you have to
Well, you can stand if you want.
All right, I'll stand up then.
Well, why don't we talk in the meantime, rather?
Oh, this quality television right here. Right, OK. Carol, can we talk about motorists facing fuel hike under Starmer squeeze?
So this is Mr Starmer, who, before the election, spent a lot of time saying that the fuel duty freeze was absolutely essential. We needed to have it. And woof, 6 weeks in, we're now hearing from credible Whitehall intelligence that he is going to end it. And the likelihood is that fuel is going to go up by 10p a litre. Now, this is the guy who talks about growth. Road transport affects growth hugely, and diesel is the kind of engine oil of the economy. So what he's going to do, he's going to hit all these working people who he said he was never going to touch.
Workers weren't going to be hit by the tax
Workers
rises.
weren't going to be hit, and this, you could not impose a tax that would hurt workers more than this. So this is yet another lie that we've been hit with. I mean, you know, drivers will not have been fleeced on a scale like this since the last time Labour were in power, which is 1997 to 2010, when they put it up. It's just a staggeringly stupid thing to do, on a par with, you know.
Well, first of all, it's not. This hasn't been. This is pure speculation because this comes from.
It's not been denied.
It comes
Whitehall
from a
intelligence.
question to Starmer at the press conference.
No, it
where
doesn't.
they asked, and he said, "I'm not going to write the budget now," or something like that.
Fairfield UK have seen documents
I'm not saying it's not.
Hang on, just say Fairfield UK say they've seen documents suggesting
Yes.
a 10p a litre increase.
Yes.
Obviously, they've ring-fenced 3 taxes, and they didn't promise not to raise tax on anything. So it's not a lie if they do it. Do I think it would be the right tax to raise? Probably not, for the reasons that you've identified. I think that you could certainly unfreeze it without sort of increasing it to 10p. You could maybe make it a sort of a few p.
It will also feed into inflation as well.
Yes. I don't know that I'm not sure about. That's more debatable. The fundamental point is that the government needs to raise revenue, and I think...
No, for the black hole that doesn't exist. Come on.
Carol, the government, even without that black hole, and I don't actually like talks about black holes
there isn't one.
because the economy isn't like a credit card. It's not like a household budget.
No, that's
the
not
government
how it
can
works. always
find money.
They keep talking. Why are they talking about it like that?
Because
this £20 billion black hole.
this is something that we have that the both main parties have in common, which is that they talk to people, they try to explain the economy in ways that that are not actually coherent with reality, because we have there are all kinds of means at the government's disposal to raise revenue. We can borrow money, you can
create it,
or you can create money. That's printing money always
Only
sounds
3
bad,
ways.
but the governments do it all the time.
We want to rattle through a few more stories.
Yes.
Right, Carol, what about, should we talk about fire service rescues obese Britain?
This is going to make people very cross, I think. Firemen were called out more than 2,000 times last year to get We've got to stop just calling them obese to get very fat people out of their homes because they couldn't get out themselves. And this is just how the figure is 5 times higher than it was a few years ago.
Every 4 hours?
Every 4 hours, a fire engine. And there was one incident, Bev, where a guy's had a heart attack. I hope he's all right. Anyway, 39 firefighters, 15 vehicles spent more than 15 hours trying to get him out of his house. And
you should be sent a bill.
Well, this is I think this is the point. You can't have emergency services taken up with situations that are mainly self-inflicted with people. And if you're so fat you can't get out of your house, you really should be in a hospital getting some kind of treatment to sort your fat out.
You because stop eating.
Well, or you could stop eating.
Wouldn't that be a help?
Well, there are all kinds of medical conditions.
No, do not just stop this nonsense.
I mean,
Most
can't even let me finish my point yet.
Well, I know what you're going to say.
4 hours,
Look.
the fire service had to winch someone out of their house.
We either have a basic principle that people can access public services like the fire service, ambulance.
You were going on about smoking before, and you were sniffing at the idea that people who smoke should get national health treatment. So you're saying...
No, I think smokers should get national health treatment.
Oh, do you? Oh, okay.
Of course I do.
Oh, OK.
Of course I do.
Right,
I think that people should be allowed to smoke, and I think that the national
health
health
treatment...
I don't think people have to be winched out over a 15-hour operation by...
I don't think
there was a girl...
have some culpability here.
Look, I feel very sorry for those people. And
no, I feel sorry for the firefighters.
Yes, of course I do. And of course I feel sorry for the fire...
No,
of course I feel sorry for the firefighters as well. I've got a fire... Why are you laughing?
I've just seen the strap, Rotund Rescues.
It's very good. That's why we did that story, because of this strap.
I've got a fireman friend, and he has talked about having to do this, and he says it's a very unpleasant experience, and it's unpleasant for the people.
It's also keeping the firemen away from fires.
Exactly.
That's what it's doing. And there was a girl a couple of years ago who was a young girl. She was 18. She needed an operation. Literally couldn't get through the front door of the house. They had to take the roof off. So firemen had to go in and winch her up through the...
Once they get them out, what happens then to them?
I think that...
Because if they're going to have to then be winched back in.
Do you know what they've got to do? They've got to put them into ambulances that have been made bigger for morbidly obese people. And we're paying for all of this. This is an outrageous amount of money. And then they get taken to a special bed in a hospital.
Shouldn't Keir Starmer be talking about this?
Yes.
But
banning smoking in pub gardens.
The government's always talking about obesity.
Don't think for a second that Keir Starmer's not going to come after the fast food that people are eating. Like, the cigarettes is the tip of the iceberg.
Well, what's your complaint then? That people are too fat, or that people have access to too much fast food? Or shouldn't the government be doing something about obesity?
Oh, absolutely.
Completely.
But go after the food companies. Go after the massive corporations.
Of course we can. I think that, of course we should go after the fast food companies rather than people who are obese. I think go after them rather than the people who are victims of that.
There couldn't be more education about food than there is now. You know, every magazine you pick up, every newspaper, every TV.
How we do have an obesity crisis, and something is causing it.
We do have an obesity crisis.
That needs to be so. People are eating too much.
Yes.
And not doing enough exercise. That's it.
Why?
It's the second biggest cause of cancer in this country. Preventable cancers.
It's causing more deaths than smoking.
Many more.
Should we just talk about these people who are on a cruise ship?
Yeah.
Presumably getting quite fat because the food is excellent on cruise ships.
Oh my God, Bev.
This is amazing.
When I went on a cruise about 15 years ago for my grand 85th birthday, I put on 6 kilos.
Exactly.
6 kilos in 1 week. Never recovered.
These people on this cruise ship, they've got on a cruise to go around the world, Jonathan, and what's happened to them?
They've been stranded in Belfast for 3 months.
3 months?
Now, I love Belfast.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to spend a few days there.
But not 3 months.
3 months.
But you'd prefer to be stranded in Acapulco, wouldn't you?
But hang on, who was the cruise company, do we know? Why haven't the cruise company sent another boat to Belfast?
Because basically it's a purpose-built ship that is a residential cruise ship. And there's a technical problem with the ship. And what people have done is they've bought cabins outright
so
for
it's
3
not
years.
a cruise, it's like a residential.
It's almost like a residence. It's almost like being in a house.
A care home on the water.
Not a care, because not for people who need care homes, but it's like, being in a residential house.
That was very damning it down.
She's going to have to be carried out by firemen soon for giggling.
I know.
You've got these very rich Americans who basically expect you to be on a 3-year round-the-world cruise. We've been in Northern Ireland for the
It's got problems with its gearbox, apparently.
Well, if that
amazing.
Was me, you'd get off, wouldn't you? You'd fly.
But most people are kind of, from what I read, most people are kind of laughing about it, having a great time.
How many many countries have they been to? Or was it did they start in
They've been
Belfast?
to Belfast.
That's it.
That's it.
It's around the world.
Well, it's lovely, but I'm not sure you want to be there
How many
for 3
times do
months.
you go to the
but, you know.
Titanic experience, really?
And we didn't get to talk about the fact that Angel Delight reminds us of childhood.
All about Thames water.
What flavour Angel Delight was your favourite?
Well, there's only
chocolate, I guess.
No, there's only one decent one, strawberry. But it's the one we used to get because it's all our parents could afford because it was cheap. I mean, I got sick of it in the end.
Sunday
but, you know,
tea.
Yeah.
I also used to love ambrosia rice pudding.
Yeah, it's the taste that whisks us all back to childhood.
ambrosia.
Angel Delight. Okay. Right, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Carol. We managed to get it through that. It's San Francisco.
I thought Beverly Turner was about to lose it again.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you're tickling her under the table there.
I'm not doing anything under the table, Carol. Please, don't get me arrested.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom just after 11:30. And the top story this morning, pubs, restaurants and some outdoor venues are warning jobs will be lost if the government goes ahead with reported plans to ban smoking in some outside spaces. Ministers haven't confirmed plans from so-called secret Whitehall papers first reported in the Sun newspaper, but it is understood a range of measures are being looked at to make Britain smoke-free. Well, as we reported to you in the last half hour or so, a driver has been convicted of trafficking a group of migrants into the UK in a van with a hidden compartment. 43-year-old Anas Al-Mustafa was arrested in Newhaven when 7 people were found struggling to breathe inside a specially adapted van. Crew members on board a ferry to Newhaven, travelling from France, had to use an axe to free the migrants after hearing their pleas for help. The father of 2 will be sentenced next Friday. The Prime Minister has arrived for talks with Emmanuel Macron in Paris as part of a wider push to rebuild post-Brexit relations with the EU. Sir Keir Starmer's talks with French leaders are set to focus on a new treaty that could take 6 months to finalise, with hopes for a 2025 signing. Illegal migration is also on the agenda as leaders aim to enhance their sharing of intelligence to tackle smuggling gangs. Well, earlier the Prime Minister also met British Paralympians after attending last night's Paralympics opening ceremony. 2 men have been arrested on suspicion of murder after a wheelchair user was stabbed in East London. Police found Jade Anthony Barnett injured after being called to a fight. The 38-year-old, who lost his leg in a motorbike accident in 2007, sadly died at the scene in Clapton. He's been described today by friends and family as cheerful and caring. Troubled Thames Water says it needs to hike customer bills by nearly 60% in the next 5 years, or warns it could become uninvestable. Britain's biggest water supplier made the demands in its response to regulator Ofwat's proposals to cap household water bills. And not a single ticket has been sold so far, but Oasis are still expecting a sold-out tour. They've added 3 extra dates to the UK's leg of that tour. Noel Gallagher says unprecedented demand has prompted the decision to put on those shows, one in Manchester, another in London and in Edinburgh. Tickets go on sale for the tour on Saturday. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And an update on the markets as they stand at 11:30. The pound will buy you $1.3192 and €1.1895. The price of gold, £1,911.34 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 8,364 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Oh dear. Right, up at noon, good afternoon, Britain, with Emily and Tom. They are here to tell us what's coming up on the show today.
We've got a huge amount. A huge amount, not least we're looking at the approval ratings of this new government. Would you be astonished to learn that of every new government since the turn of the millennium, this one has the joint lowest approval rating for this far in to its time in government.
That does not surprise me at all. Who are they joint with?
Theresa May.
Good Lord.
After the 2017 election. So Theresa May had a much higher approval rating, of course, before that election, but it was only after her authority was shot. She sort of appeared to be leading a rudderless government.
She had a lot of baggage.
Absolutely, and was running a minority government, which is never easy. This government has a massive majority in the House of Commons, and yet has a 23% approval rating.
So I want to know everyone's theories as to why it's so low so quickly. What is cutting through? What is it that he's done, said, behaved? Want people's perceptions. What is going wrong for Mr.
I reckon
Keir
people look
Starmer?
at him and don't think he's not a Prime Minister.
Maybe it's just that.
They don't think he's
Maybe it's just that miserable speech won't have helped.
Miserable speech.
Although you look at how many people actually voted for him in the first place. Yes, a big majority in the House of Commons.
Very shallow share
won
of the vote.
by small margins in lots of seats.
Yeah.
I mean, Theresa May got, what was it, 43% of the vote?
Yeah.
He got 34% of the vote.
And 2/3 of the seats.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, why don't people like him? I think the very fact that he's simplistically called those rioters far right, that has annoyed a lot of people.
Whilst not acknowledging anything around the issue of immigration, which is the #1 issue at the moment.
And the keynote speech in the Rose Garden, immigration wasn't mentioned.
Ignoring.
I'm not sure it's to do with
He doesn't want to see things he doesn't want.
And I think the winter
fuel.
I think the winter fuel is a big factor.
I think that it's probably going to be more economic. I think looking at specific polling on how the government dealt with the riots, people tend to think that they dealt with it in the right way.
We're not talking about how he dealt with the riots. Yes, most people are happy that he clamped down on, wrongdoing. But about his inability to answer questions when it comes to immigration, his inability to reach out to people and say, you know what, I do understand this is a top issue in this country. I shouldn't just ignore it. We are going to do something about it. I understand you're angry. But I think, rather than the actual riots themselves, I don't know, but that's what I think. I want to hear what people at home think.
Don't forget, he's changing their language on immigration. The people crossing the... I know, I'm slipping down. Carmelo has broken this chair as well.
Shall we join you?
Carmelo has broken this chair. I know. I'm taking over your notice. There we are, I'm back.
There you go.
Well, I can make you feel better. Here you go.
But he's also talking now not about illegal immigration, irregular immigration.
Yes.
That's outrageous.
No, I think, we were talking yesterday on the programme to a German journalist who was talking about all of the same problems. In Germany, of course, 300,000 illegal migrants this year is the expected number, an astonishing number, which has really hit Olaf Scholz's approval ratings, but also the German economy contracting last quarter. These two things, immigration and the economy, means that what this German journalist was telling us yesterday, Olaf Scholz, a dead man walking, not even being
but
the
he's
job
best
for
buds
long.
with our Prime Minister now.
And of course now he's latching himself to Keir Starmer. Could that be those twin issues, migration and the economy, what are really
free speech, censorship.
That's cutting through.
It is massively cutting through. If you're on social media a lot like I am, you are very worried about the authoritarian take on what we can and can't say. Right, I'm gonna get my spanner out and fix his chair now while we take a little break, because we're going to be talking about Oasis. Can you sing any Oasis songs?
No, and I'm not going to.
Oh, come on.
But I do like something back in anger.
Don't look back in anger.
Don't look back in anger.
And on that,
never look back.
It's the only one I like. It's the only one I know.
Not Champagne Supernova?
No. It's the only one I know.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A fine and dry day for many of us today. Feeling fairly warm in the sun, but definitely fresher than it was yesterday. And this evening's looking pretty cool as well. High pressure is starting to dominate. It's moving in from the south and west, but we've still got low pressure up to the north and some frontal systems that will bring some further showers to parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and some areas of northern England through today. They could be quite heavy actually across northern areas of Scotland. There's a risk of thunderstorms, possibly some hail and quite a brisk breeze here. Different story elsewhere, even where we do see showers across northern areas of England. There'll still be plenty of sunny spells, and in the sunshine, as I said, still feeling fairly warm but cooler than yesterday, particularly in the southeast. With 30 degrees in southeastern areas yesterday, 24 degrees is the max throughout today. So this evening, still some showers across parts of Scotland, particularly across the Northern Isles and northern areas of Scotland. That's where we'll see the heaviest showers. They will tend to slowly ease into this evening, particularly quickly compared to this morning, and we'll see some clearer skies starting to develop. But temperatures are going to fall away quite quickly through this evening. Clear skies and the sun setting a little earlier than we're used to through the summer means that temperatures will fall lower than recent nights. We could get down as low as 3 or 4 degrees rurally in some northern and eastern areas. The breeze, though, across northern areas of Scotland will hold temperatures up a little higher, with more in the way of cloud and just a few showers lingering across the far north by Friday morning. Elsewhere, though, a dry night to come. But that will mean, despite the chillier start, a sunny start to the day on Friday. Some patches of mist and fog around that may take a couple of hours to clear after sunrise. But once they do, there'll be plenty of long-lived sunny spells through Friday, and it will feel pleasant enough in the sunshine once again. The winds will be quite light, perhaps some hazier sunshine approaching the south and east later in the afternoon, but still temperatures climbing towards the low 20s or the high teens quite widely. Bye-bye.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What's the time? It is 11:41 on Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Andrew Pearce here with Bev Turner.
So the Prime Minister has just finished his meeting with Emmanuel Macron in Paris and commented on this leaked proposal for the smoking ban that we've been discussing all morning. Here he is.
My starting point on this is to remind everyone that over 80,000 people lose their lives every year because of smoking.
So he is doing it.
That's a preventable death. It's a huge burden on the NHS, and of course it's a burden on the taxpayer. So yes, we are going to take decisions in this space. More details will be revealed, but this is a preventable series of deaths, and we've got to take the action to reduce the burden on the NHS and reduce the burden on the taxpayer.
You said when you became Prime Minister you wanted politics to tread more lightly on people's lives. This is the opposite, isn't it?
Well, there it is. There it is.
The horse's mouth.
That's it. He's going to do it.
The Sun put it on their front page. They'd seen documents. He's going to do it, and it'd be interesting to see how the Tories respond. But they've only got 121 MPs.
Honestly, I despair.
And with a majority that size, there'll be a lot of Labour MPs will not be happy about this.
And I'm going to say it. He wasn't that bothered about people's heart health when he was talking about the fact that they had to have a vaccine that wasn't trialled and had known harms to heart, when he was saying that everyone should have it to leave their house. Wasn't that bothered about heart health then. Anyway.
So that's confirmed. The government is considering, it's going to happen. Don't you think they've got more important things to do? Didn't he say the economy was broken, trains aren't working, we've got strikes, the NHS is in a terrible parlous place? Going to do this. There'll be huge issues with this in the House of Lords because of all the freedom issues.
And it's what Dennis Skinner said. It's when the left use that, but we're just going to save lives. There's some deep-rooted psychological issue going on with people who want to go around saving other people's lives in that way. I understand the government have public health responsibilities. I get that.
I suspect also they've leaked this because they want to get away from the sleaze row, which hasn't gone away all week.
Sleaze row? Ali.
Well, Ali, the Labour donor who's got us passed to Downing Street.
Maybe. Right. Honestly, I'm aghast. OK, Andrew, I had an Oasis soup this morning. Do you know why they call it that?
No.
Because you got to roll with it.
Don't get... Oh, I see. Dear me, who wrote that?
Not me. Right, Oasis. You got to roll with it. Get it? Yeah, Oasis have announced 3 more dates in Manchester, London and Edinburgh for the Britpop band reunion tour.
This is before they've even sold a single ticket. Well, let's talk to the music writer, James McMahon. James, I suspect we're going to see even more. That's now 17 concerts. We're going to see even more, aren't we? Because the demand is going to outstrip supply.
I feel a bit torn on it, really. I hope they're back for good, to paraphrase another band from Manchester. But I also fear that I would recommend that if people are trying to get tickets on Saturday, of which there will be thousands and thousands, they maybe try to get the dates that are the earliest in the tour, just to be sure. Maybe it's worth a trip to Cardiff, just to... That would be my advice.
Is that because you think the brothers might do what they often do and fall out and not get to the 14th concert?
I mean, money's a hell of a motivation. I also do sense that's a very cynical side of me that I try to repress at all times. The real music fan and the Oasis fan in me thinks that the reasons for this reformation are really come from the heart. I do think they are back for reasons that are more than financial.
Come on, James. They might as well call this the divorce tour, mightn't they? This is
no,
just.
I really do.
Oh, come on. This is about the fact that there isn't. No, is it? Which one is it? Noel Gallagher's got divorced or Liam? Liam.
Well, I was making the joke. I was making the joke on Twitter that, you know, God bless Noel's divorce, but I don't think it is all about that. Liam's been hankering for this for years, and I watched an interview that Noel did with the music journalist John Robb. I watched it literally this morning, and he was so complimentary about Liam. And I do think, and I think this is one of the reasons why they've never really got on, is that in Noel's heart, there is something that nags at him where he knows that he's good, but with Liam, he's great. He writes good songs, but Liam sings them better than he ever could, you know?
Yeah.
They very much are a band that are the sum of the parts.
It's a massive, and there's a massive bit of nostalgia, James, isn't there, for this tour? Starting in Heaton Park. I used to do cross-country around Heaton Park. It's next door to the school I went to. But it's nostalgia, isn't it, James?
Well, it is for people of my generation, unquestionably. But I also think there's something that's very almost cultural about it, that's very important for our culture. Everyone's miserable. Everything. It's hilarious that we're having this conversation on the anniversary of Definitely Maybe with a song on it called Cigarettes and Alcohol.
Yes.
That's 30 years ago. It feels a long time ago, given the context of what you were just talking about.
Doesn't
it? Also, if you go watch Liam, there's kids there. Like, it's 14, 15-year-olds, because that music is immortal. It's music. Liam is someone that kids look at and go, I want to be like that. And
very much so.
More of that.
We've run out of time, James. I'm so sorry, but come back and talk to us again when the tour starts. Jane McMahon there, music writer and podcaster, talking to teenagers in this country. Record numbers of depression. Don't go anywhere. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
EasyJet is launching a new recruitment drive focused on attracting cabin crew members over 50 and those even considering retirement.
Well, the initiative is called Returnships and is inspired by research that suggests that 75% of people over 50 years old believe that now is the ideal time to embark on a new career.
Joining us now to discuss what it takes to embark on a second career as cabin crew is Helen Williams. Good morning, Helen.
Hi, good morning, Helen.
Welcome. Just touching down in our studio.
It is. I've had a few days off and now I'm here.
So you are now cabin crew.
I am.
What inspired you to get into it? What did you do before? How did it all come around?
Oh, so when I graduated, I took an office job with my grad scheme, and that job lasted 6 months, and I started working for a European carrier. I did just over 5 years at that European carrier and had an absolutely fabulous time. I then went on to a wet lease operation with an Irish carrier and another mainline UK carrier. I then decided to have time out. I had a business, I had a family, I had children, and last autumn I decided, why not? Let's go back and do it all again. So returning to that European carrier that I'd worked at when I was in my early 20s.
And what is that like for you now, returning that bit older, having that life experience, having your children, do you think that's been a benefit to you?
It's absolutely been a benefit. I mean, the amount of parents that thank me for helping me with their small children when they're crying on a flight. I am that person now.
When you went back for a second time, did you notice more sort of older people amongst your sort of colleagues?
I did. So when I returned onto my initial course in March of this year, just over half the course were over the age of 30.
Wow.
Which was absolutely phenomenal. And I was expecting to return and be with a lot of younger, 18, 19, 24. I was expecting to be that dinosaur. And that first day of training, to find out that I wasn't the dinosaur, you have no idea how exciting that was. And they've gone on, that particular group, to be phenomenal crew members.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, the Children's Society has done a survey which suggests British teenagers are most depressed in Europe and girls are significantly less happy. Annette Kello is a parenting and lifestyle journalist. What's the problem?
Well, I think we've got a bit of doom and gloom going on in the UK at the moment, in particular in comparison to Europe. And I think a lot of it is parents are very worried about children's safety at the moment, online safety, but also being out and about. And then I feel because of that, teenagers are more indoors, going on social media, seeing this perfect life, and then combine that with the cost of living crisis. And I think you've got a recipe for unhappy teenagers.
What used to keep teenagers happy then, Annette? Like, when you were a teenager, what was it that kept you happy? It was a sense of, what, optimism?
Yeah,
life around the corner?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a teenager, I don't know if I can really say this, but I don't know if people would do this now. But you know, when you used to say, I'm staying at so-and-so's house, and so-and-so would say, I'm staying at so-and-so's house, and then really you were going out on a jolly and, you know, going to a party in a field. I don't think that happens now, but it was good, clean fun.
Oh, you'd be surprised. So I have a 15-year-old daughter who, and they are the ones in this particular survey who do have very low mental wellness, and a sense of happiness is gone. I think it is really simple. I think teenagers need fresh air, they need freedom, and they need good food. I've just coined the 3 Fs. And I think they're getting terrible diets often, so that's affecting their health as well. They're not getting anything like enough freedom for the reasons you said about parents being worried about them. And they're spending so much time on phones that means they're getting a false friendship, that they feel they're connecting to people here, but they're not connecting in real life with friends.
I think that's really important to have that real life communication. And I know I did an article last year actually about parents that use a lot of tracking apps to look at their children and see where they are. And while I appreciate that's really good for safety, I also think what happens is sometimes they need that freedom to just, you know, they need that independence, they need to learn those life skills. I even think with getting a job, I mean, I got my first job at 13, and yes, I was rubbish, but I think it's quite good, and I don't hear so many teenagers having jobs these days either.
I was doing jobs from about the age of 12.
Oh, really?
All the way to
what were you doing?
I worked in paper round, newspaper.
Yeah.
I worked in a newspaper shop, greengrocers.
Yeah, it's good.
Part of the reason I think they don't have as many jobs is they look at what they will get paid and they look at the cost of things in shops and they think it's not worth it. They think, well, I might get, I don't know, £8 an hour or something if you're 15, but they go to the coffee shop for a sandwich and a coffee with their friends, and that's going to be twice that amount. And so there's a sense of despondency that there's no point working. How do we change that, Annette? How do we give them optimism?
Give them more money. No, I think a lot of parents as well are in a cost of living crisis. You know, even people that have so-called better paid jobs are struggling at the moment. So I think it's having a knock-on effect. But I think it's about giving them positive aspirations as well. Things like being in a society, learning a hobby, going to cadets, doing dance. All of these things are good confidence-building skills.
You're absolutely right. Do as much as you can. Right, we have done as much as we can for today. Andrew and I will be back on Monday, but Tom and Emily are next.
Looks like things are heating up.
boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A fine and dry day for many of us today. Feeling fairly warm in the sun, but definitely fresher than it was yesterday. And this evening's looking pretty cool as well. High pressure is starting to dominate. It's moving in from the south and west, but we've still got low pressure up to the north and some frontal systems that will bring some further showers to parts of